I stood in the training room of Jiangqing's second high school, my face pale and drenched in sweat. Large droplets rolled down my cheeks, blurring my vision. I let out a heavy breath. The wooden training sword in my hand was trembling, but I forced it to stay steady, completing the final arc of the thunder strike technique. As the morning sun began to spill through the windows, figures started appearing at the doorway. They were my classmates from the martial arts track. Seeing me there didn't surprise them anymore. Chenyu is the first one here again, someone whispered. He's been practicing every single morning for 2 years. I thought he'd quit, but he's still at it. Give it a rest, another voice sneered. The guy is a biohuman. He had to take out a loan just to pay the $50,000 class fee. Add that to his $1 million birth debt, and if he doesn't work himself to death, he'll be a slave for life. Not that it matters. If he fails the assessment in 2 weeks, he's getting kicked back to the liberal arts track anyway. I wiped the sweat from my brow and ignored the noise. In front of my eyes, a faint blue fluorescent panel floated in the air. Name, Chenyu. Realm, Body Tempering Stage 2. Techniques, Star Treading Stance, Thunder Strike, Minor Mastery. Talent, Perseverance. Time will prove everything. Time will prove everything, I muttered to myself. It had been 2 years, and my progress was still barely noticeable. I looked at that useless panel and felt my lip twitch. I had crossed over into this world 2 years ago. It was a place where martial arts flourished alongside high technology, and the human race spanned the stars. This planet, Red Yellow Star, was just a speck on the edge of human territory. When the panel first appeared, I thought I'd hit the jackpot, a golden ticket to power. Instead, it had done absolutely nothing. You're a disgrace to cheat codes everywhere, I thought, feeling a bit bitter. Life here wasn't easy. I was a biohuman, which meant I wasn't born naturally. Because of constant wars with cultists and a plummeting birth rate, the government grew babies in labs. The state paid for our upbringing, but it wasn't free. Every biohuman started life with $1 million debt. Normally, it took 20 to 30 years of hard labor to pay it off. The only shortcut was getting into a martial arts university. If you made the cut, the debt was wiped clean. But I didn't just want to clear my debt. Even without the system, I would have chosen this path. In this world, powerful warriors could shatter stars with a wave of their hand. If I was going to live this life, I wanted to reach the top. I'd rather die trying than live as a cog in the machine. As I waited for class to start, a sharp, mocking voice cut through the room. Since you're a biohuman, why don't you just go find a factory job? Can you even afford body tempering supplements? Stop dreaming about flying high with martial arts. This isn't a path for people like you. I narrowed my eyes. Standing there in a custom-made, high-end uniform was Xiaofeng. He had his arms crossed, a look of pure disgust on his face. Discrimination against biohumans was common, but Xiaofeng went out of his way to be loud about it. Xiaofeng, if you want to fight, I'm ready anytime, I said coldly. But don't waste your breath trying to provoke me. Fight you? You aren't worth the effort, he spat. Xiaofeng, get out of the way and get to your seat. The heavy, authoritative voice of our teacher, Feng Xiong, echoed from behind him. Xiaofeng's smirk vanished instantly. He didn't dare talk back to a martial arts expert like Feng Xiong and scurried to his spot. Feng Xiong walked to the front of the class. Today is combat practice, he said. I need a student to be my sparring partner. The room went silent, then buzzed with excitement. Sparring with Feng Xiong was basically a private tutoring session worth tens of thousands of dollars. Me? Pick me, teacher, students shouted. Xiaofeng was practically jumping out of his seat. Feng Xiong's gaze swept over the crowd. He didn't even look at Xiaofeng. His eyes landed on me. Chenyu, step up. Thank you, teacher. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my wooden sword and jumped onto the stage. I could feel Xiaofeng's rage from across the room. This was the third time Feng Xiong had picked me. Most students only got picked once, and Xiaofeng hadn't been picked at all. He couldn't understand why a teacher would favor a biohuman over him. On the stage, Feng Xiong didn't hold back. We clashed, and he coached me through every move. Your strike is too direct. Use small feints to trick the opponent, he barked. Power starts from the ground. Keep your feet planted, or your force is cut in half. Every word he spoke hit my weaknesses perfectly. By the end of the session, I was exhausted but felt like I'd learned more in 10 minutes than I had in a month. Thank you for the guidance, Teacher, I said, bowing. I knew he was looking out for me. Most natural humans didn't get this kind of attention. Keep working hard, Feng Xiong said, his voice dropping slightly. If you don't pass the assessment in a month, my hands are tied. You have to pass to stay in this class. I nodded, but a shadow crossed my mind. I knew the truth. With my current strength, passing the next assessment was going to be nearly impossible. If I failed, I'd be sent back to the regular classes, destined to spend my life as a corporate slave. I knew what failure meant. If I didn't pass, I'd spend the rest of my life working off debts. My entire future would be predictable and bleak. Feng Xiong knew it too, but there was nothing he could do. Talent is something you're either born with or you aren't. All right, Feng Xiong announced, breaking the silence. Pick your partners for combat practice. I'll be watching from the sidelines. The students immediately started pairing up. Before I could even scan the room, Xiao Feng was standing right in front of me. His eyes were burning with provocation. Chinyu, he sneered. Do you dare to fight me? Let's see what you actually learned from Teacher Feng. He was desperate to prove himself. He didn't dare argue with Feng Xiong, but he was confident he could crush me. He wanted to show the teacher that picking a biohuman over a natural was a mistake. I didn't answer him at first. I was staring into space, completely frozen. For the first time since I'd crossed over into this world, my status panel was flickering. Combat complete. Success. Copying talent. Talent acquired. Saber Master. My mind exploded. The details flooded in. This talent increased my saber comprehension by 200 times. It gave me the saber eye, a natural ability to see the flow of combat. It even gave me a chance to enter a state of sudden enlightenment whenever I practiced. I was stunned. Ideas, techniques, and inspirations flooded my brain like a tidal wave. I thought about my Thunderstrike saber technique, the one I had spent 2 years struggling to master. Looking at it now through the lens of a saber master, I realized it was full of mistakes. Every move I'd practiced was wrong. In just a few seconds of reflection, my understanding of the style skyrocketed. I was fixing 2 years of errors in a heartbeat. I felt a sudden urge to apologize to my system panel. I shouldn't have doubted it. This was how a true genius felt. It was an incredible rush. What's the matter? Too scared to fight? Xiaofeng's voice broke my trance. He saw my silence as fear. I figured. Just remember, biohumans are made to serve us naturals. You were grown in a lab to work, not to enjoy life. Don't think you can just climb to the top. Nearby, Feng Xiong's ears twitched. He looked over at us, his expression darkening. He was disappointed. He liked my persistence, but if I wouldn't even accept a challenge, then maybe I really didn't have the heart for the martial path. He sighed, ready to look away. He figured it might be better for me to give up now rather than fail the assessment later. Fight. I finally spoke. My voice was steady. Why wouldn't I? I looked at Xiao Feng with an intensity I'd never felt before. I understood now. To get stronger, I needed to fight. Fighting Feng Xiong had given me his greatest talent. I wondered what else I could take. Xiao Feng's smug grin vanished, replaced by pure rage. We raised our wooden sabers, the atmosphere between us turning cold. Xiao Feng moved first. He lunged forward, his blade whistling toward my face. He was at the 4th stage of body refining. He was faster and stronger than me. He practiced the 9-wave saber, a style where every strike built upon the momentum of the last. In the past, I wouldn't have stood a chance. But now, everything was different. Through my new eyes, I could see the path of his energy. I saw the power rise from his feet, through his knees, hips, and waist, finally flowing into his blade. It was crystal clear. I took a single step back. The wooden blade grazed the tip of my nose. Feng Xiong's eyes widened from the sidelines. That tiny movement required perfect timing and total confidence. It was a high-level prediction, but he knew the 9-wave style didn't stop at one hit. Xiao Feng could chain 3 strikes together, each one heavier than the last. Let's see you dodge this. Xiao Feng barked. He twisted his wrist, transitioning instantly into the 2nd strike. I remained calm. The Saber Master talent didn't give me a raw power boost, but it gave me something better, absolute perception. No secret was hidden from me. I saw the tiny, microscopic hesitation in his movement as he tried to link the 1st wave to the 2nd. I swung my blade for the first time. It was a small, tight motion, but it was incredibly fast. I used the thunder strike technique, aiming the tip of my wooden sword at a specific point on his blade, the exact node where his power was being transferred. A dull thud echoed through the room. Xiaofeng's massive momentum vanished instantly, as if I'd pulled the bones right out of his body. His strike went limp. Thunder strike, at Grandmaster level? Fang Xiong gasped. Xiaofeng turned bright red, his breath hitching. He felt like his strength had been hijacked mid-swing. Before he could recover, I followed through. My blade didn't stop. I slammed it hard into the side of his face. The crack was loud and sharp. Xiaofeng was sent flying several meters across the floor. Blood sprayed from his nose and mouth, and his eyes turned bloodshot from the impact. He looked pathetic. A biohuman. Xiaofeng groaned, clutching his face and spitting out blood. He couldn't even speak clearly. Xiaofeng lay on the floor, his eyes hollow and vacant. He looked lost, as if he couldn't process what had just happened. He never expected to lose, especially not to a biohuman like me. Fang Xiong watched the scene, a faint frown creasing his brow. He waved his hand dismissively. "Someone take him to the infirmary," he ordered. In the world of martial arts, getting hurt was as common as eating dinner. Xiaofeng's injuries weren't life-threatening. With a week of rest and some recovery fluid, he'd be back on his feet. But Fang Xiong couldn't stop staring at me. His surprise was written all over his face. He was an expert. He saw exactly what I did. That last strike of mine hadn't been random. It was aimed perfectly at the weakness of the 9-wave style. It was no secret that the style had a brief moment of vulnerability during the transition between waves. The problem was that the window was too small to hit. If anyone could just exploit it, the 9-wave style would have been obsolete years ago. Yet, I had done it. I was only at the second stage of body tempering, but I had just crushed a fourth-stage opponent. Fang Xiong looked at me with growing satisfaction. He knew I didn't have any talent for the blade before today, but in this vast universe, strange things happened. People awakened all the time. Some found ancient legacies, while others just had their brains suddenly click into place. As long as I wasn't worshipping some evil god, Fang Xiong didn't care why I was getting stronger. He just liked what he saw. I ignored the stares and focused on my internal interface. Just as I suspected, defeating Xiaofeng had triggered a reward. I had gained a third talent, ape arms. It was a minor boost that slightly increased the strength in my arms. Xiaofeng had chosen the 9-wave style specifically because his arms were naturally stronger than the rest of his body. Now, that strength was mine. I felt a subtle warmth spread through my muscles. It wasn't much, but every little bit helped. Still, compared to the Saber Master talent I'd taken from Fang Xiong, this new one was absolute garbage. I almost felt bad for Xiaofeng. Even his innate talent was pathetic. I sighed, but a win was a win. My gaze drifted back to Fang Xiong. I realized now just how terrifying he actually was. My Saber Master talent allowed me to learn 200 times faster than a normal person. It gave me this saber eye, letting me see the flow of power in any technique. One day of my practice was worth a year for anyone else. It was how I'd pushed my Thunder Strike technique to the Grandmaster level in seconds. If Fang Xiong had this talent naturally, why was he teaching at a small school on a backwater planet like Red Yellow Star? A genius like him belonged in the capital or somewhere even greater. I shook the thought away. My own power was too low to worry about his secrets. Right now, I needed more talents. I needed to fight. I looked around the room. Most of the students had already paired up. My fight with Xiaofeng had drawn some eyes, but people were moving on. I needed a reason to keep challenging people without looking suspicious. I needed a persona. If I acted like a martial madman, someone obsessed with combat, no one would question why I was constantly looking for a fight. My eyes locked onto the one person in the room who didn't have a partner. No one was fighting him because no one was qualified to. It was Wang Qianjun. He was the brightest star of our martial arts class. At the 8th stage of body tempering, he was the only one with a real shot at the top 3 universities. To me, he wasn't just a classmate anymore. He was a walking treasure chest of talent. I knew I couldn't beat him. Even with my Saber Master skills, the gap in our physical cultivation was too wide. But winning didn't matter. A martial madman doesn't care about winning. He only cares about the thrill of the strike. I started walking toward him. Fang Xiong's eyes narrowed as he tracked my movement. He probably thought I'd grown too arrogant after beating Xiao Feng. He stepped closer, ready to intervene so Wang Qianjun wouldn't accidentally kill me. I stopped right in front of the genius. Wang Qianjun was sitting cross-legged, a black spear resting across his lap. He didn't even open his eyes. 3 seconds, he said, his voice cold. State your business. I grinned, my pulse racing. I want to fight. I grinned at Chen Yu's words. You look a little lonely, I said, my voice steady. How about I be your opponent? Wang Qianjun snapped his eyes open. He stared at me, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing his face. He clearly hadn't expected someone like me to speak to him that way. You aren't my match, he said flatly. I let out a soft laugh. What a coincidence. I don't think I am either. Arrogant. That was the only word for it. The rest of the martial arts students had stopped their own sparring to watch us. They heard every word. To them, I was a joke. I had beaten Xiao Feng, sure, but Xiao Feng was at the bottom of the class. He only bullied me because he was a coward who picked on the weak. Is Chen Yu insane? Someone whispered. Did the pressure of being a biohuman finally break his brain? He's lost it, another added. That's Wang Qianjun he's talking to. The room went quiet. Whether they thought I was brave or just stupid, I had their attention. There is a very thin line between courage and recklessness. Are you sure? Wang Qianjun asked. He knew who I was. Everyone knew the class biohuman. But he had never looked down on me before. Unlike Xiao Feng, he didn't care about my origins. He only cared about strength, and to him, I had none. I didn't answer. I just felt a surge of impatience. Suddenly, Wang Qianjun moved. He didn't even stand up normally. He lunged from his cross-legged position. His black spear whistled through the air, aimed straight for my chest. It was fast. It was powerful. It felt like a dragon emerging from the deep. He was 100 times stronger than Xiao Feng. My muscles tensed. I didn't blink. I waited for the perfect moment, reacting late to strike first. I swung my wooden saber in a horizontal arc. Just before his spear reached its peak momentum, my blade collided with the tip of his weapon. I blocked it. A wave of joy hit me, followed immediately by a bone-shaking vibration. My arms trembled under the sheer force of the impact. My wooden saber groaned, the material screaming under the pressure. It was hard, but I had actually stopped his strike. Even Fang Xiong, who had been ready to jump in and save me, relaxed his stance. He looked impressed. I really did have something hidden up my sleeve. Wang Qianjun's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected me to intercept his casual strike. With a flick of his wrist, he shifted his weight. The force traveled through the spear like flowing water, the tip snapping around like a dragon's tail. I felt the change in energy. I reacted instantly, swinging my saber again to intercept the second strike. Crack! I blocked it, but the wood couldn't take it. The violent force shattered my saber into a cloud of splinters. The spear didn't stop. It slammed into my chest like a heavy whip. The impact was terrifying. My blood boiled, my vision went black, and I was sent flying backward. I crashed into a group of students, the world spinning out of control. But just before I slipped into unconsciousness, a notification flashed in my mind. Combat complete. Talent replication successful. Acquired. First-class martial arts bone. Effect. Cultivation speed increased to 30 times that of an average person. A wave of pure satisfaction washed over me. It was worth it. I smiled, letting the darkness take me, and passed out. The other students crowded around my limp body, whispering, I told you. 2 moves, and it was over. Why did he even try? He just asked for a beating. Look at him, someone remarked. He's actually smiling. They stared at my face. I looked completely content, as if I hadn't just been crushed. They couldn't understand it. They thought I was a masochist or a martial madman, driven crazy by my circumstances. Wang Qianjun stood over me, clutching his spear. He looked at the shattered wood on the floor, and then at my smiling face. He knew the truth. If my weapon hadn't broken, I might have actually survived that second strike. Even though he hadn't been serious, my saber technique was something special. He looked toward Fang Xiong. Tell him something for me when he wakes up. I'll be waiting for a second match. Next time, I'll use a wooden spear too. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. No one could call me a clown anymore. Wang Qianjun didn't offer rematches to losers. Fang Xiong nodded, a hint of shock still lingering in his eyes. He realized I had finally awakened. I was reckless and arrogant, yes, but I had earned something today. The contempt the other students held for me as a bio-human had vanished. In this world, strength is the only thing that commands respect. When I finally opened my eyes in the infirmary, the sun was already setting. My head was clear, and I felt different. Wang Qianjuan's talent was on a completely different level than Xiaofeng's. I could feel the power of that first-class bone settling into my soul. I lay there in the infirmary, the memories of the fight flooding back. I thought about the talent I had just copied from Wang Qianjun. My martial arts cultivation speed was now 30 times faster than a normal person's. One day of practice for me was now worth a full month for anyone else. It wasn't as terrifying as Fang Xiong's 200-fold mastery over the saber, but on a backwater planet like Crimson Yellow, it was a miracle most people could only dream of. "You're finally awake, kid." Fang Xiong's voice startled me. I was still riding the high of my new power when I looked up to see him standing there. He looked unimpressed. "You get a little lucky, find a tiny opportunity, and suddenly your ego explodes," he grunted. "You're only at the second level of the body refining realm, yet you had the nerve to provoke Wang Qianjun." He stepped closer, his shadow looming over my bed. "The world is full of geniuses. Don't think you're special just because you stumbled into some luck. Even a talent like Wang Qianjun is just a speck of dust in the Human Federation. You took a beating today. I hope you learned something." I nodded silently. I didn't say a word. It was clear Fang Xiong had noticed my sudden change. He assumed I had found some secret treasure or had a lucky encounter. He wasn't surprised, though. Between my fight with Xiao Feng and my clash with Wang Qianjun, my performance had been too strange to ignore. Anyone with eyes could see I wasn't the same person anymore. I realized then that a lie would only lead to more lies. It was better to stay quiet and let him fill in the blanks himself. People always believe the stories they invent for themselves anyway. "Teacher Fang," I said, changing the subject. "You talk like you've seen many geniuses stronger than Wang Qianjun." Fang Xiong curled his lip in a sneer. "Wang Qianjun? He's nothing. Your teacher here was once just a hair's breadth away from qualifying for the Clash of Stars." My ears perked up. I leaned in, eager to hear about his past, but he stopped abruptly. A flash of loneliness and regret crossed his face. "What is the Clash of Stars?" I asked. He was silent for a long time. He took a slow, heavy breath. "The Clash of Stars, that is where the true paragons of the human race compete. Even just participating, even if you don't place, is the highest honor. Your name would be known across the galaxy. Billions of souls would look up to you." My eyes lit up. The top paragons? How do they compare to Wang Qianjun? I needed those paragons. The more geniuses there were, the more top-tier talents I could steal. Fang Xiong shook his head helplessly. He knew I was stuck on this tiny planet with no access to the outside world. On the scale of the entire Crimson Yellow planet, Wang Qianjun is barely above average. There is no comparison. "I'm in a good mood today, so I'll open your eyes a bit." I sat up, giving him my full attention. "We are on Crimson Yellow," he began. "It's just a remote life planet in the Red Core system. There are nearly 1,000,000 planets like this in our system alone, and 1,000 systems like ours make up a star sector. We are currently in the Demon Mountain star sector." He paused to let that sink in. The territory controlled by the human race spans tens of thousands of star sectors. To even get a ticket to the Clash of Stars, you first have to join a major power in your sector. After rounds and rounds of brutal competition, the top 10,000 geniuses from each sector are chosen. The Clash of Stars is where those tens of thousands of sectors send their best. It's a battlefield of hundreds of millions of geniuses. I was stunned, truly stunned. "Even if you were the very last person in that ranking," Fang Xiong said, his voice low, "you are still at a peak that ordinary beings can never reach. Your name would echo through the vast territories of man." Heat surged through my chest. My heart hammered against my ribs. If I could join a battle like that, if I could fight hundreds of millions of the most talented people in existence, how many legendary talents could I copy? The desire to reach that stage consumed me instantly. Fang Xiong saw the crazed look in my eyes and stopped talking. He looked worried. He didn't want me aiming for the clouds before I could walk. Truth be told, he had exaggerated a bit. When he fought for a spot in the Demon Mountain Star Sector years ago, he had been eliminated early. He hadn't even come close to the qualifying line. But then he shrugged it off. Having a goal was good. It was better than being a depressed biohuman with no future. Work hard, kid, he said with a small smile. Maybe one day you'll actually have a chance. But take it one step at a time. Your priority is the martial exam in 3 months. You need to get into one of the 5 major universities on this planet. If you can't even do that, you'll never have the right to leave Crimson Yellow. He turned to leave. Biohumans have no parents and no background. You only have yourself. I eventually left the school and headed home. I wanted the clash of stars, but I knew I had to be realistic. I couldn't even leave this rock yet. My home was a government-provided cage room on the upper floors of a massive complex. It was 60 square meters of cramped space designed specifically for biohumans. The cost of the room was added to my debt to the state. My building alone had 2,000 units. With 3 people per household, over 6,000 people were packed into one tower. I walked through the door and finally let out a long, tired breath. I was home. Now, it was time to see what I was really capable of. I stood in the center of my small room and called up my status panel. Name: Lin Yuan. Realm: Body Tempering Level 2. Cultivation Methods: Star Treading Posture, Thunder Flash Saber, Grandmaster. Talents: Perseverance, Gray, Saber Specialist, Blue, First Class Bone, Blue. I noticed a new notification at the bottom of the screen. It was an expansion function. To unlock it, I needed to copy 3 blue quality talents. It seemed my panel wasn't just for copying, it could evolve. If I met certain conditions, I could add new features. This was a massive advantage. Collecting 3 blue talents didn't sound impossible, but it wasn't going to be easy either. From what I could see, talents were ranked by color: purple, blue, and gray. There were probably higher levels, but I hadn't encountered them yet. 3 blue talents meant I had to find and fight 3 geniuses on the same level as Wang Qianjun. The martial exam was coming up, and I knew there would be plenty of geniuses there. But that was 3 months away. I couldn't wait that long. If I wanted to copy talents through combat, I had to be proactive. I needed to go out and find people to fight. My score on the martial exam would determine which university I got into, and that would determine my path to the Clash of Stars. Time was wasting. I needed to get stronger, and I needed to do it now. I started practicing the star treading posture. Both this and the Thunder Flash Saber were basic martial arts, categorized into 5 levels: Novice, Competent, Proficient, Master, and Grandmaster. Unlike the saber technique, the star treading posture was meant for tempering the body and increasing physical strength. I moved my feet in the pattern of the stars, making my muscles vibrate at a specific frequency. Within 30 seconds, my body began to shake uncontrollably. I didn't stop. I ignored the groans of my muscles and kept my movements precise. By the time I finished one set, I was soaked in sweat. I wasn't tired, though. I was ecstatic. First Class Bone gave me a cultivation speed 30 times faster than a normal person. No wonder Wang Qianjun reached level 8 at his age. With this talent, it was impossible to be slow. After just one session, I felt a massive difference. My progress was moving like a rocket. A few more sessions, and I would break through to level 3. I was already at a bottleneck, and this new talent was the final push I needed. I didn't hesitate. I went right back into the posture. Outside, the moon hung high in the sky. Xiaofeng sat in his room, touching his swollen right cheek. His eyes were bloodshot and full of confusion. He had fought me dozens of times and never lost once. Today, he felt a sense of powerlessness he couldn't explain. To him, I was just a lowly biohuman who couldn't even afford basic supplements. How could I suddenly be so strong? Then, a thought flashed through his mind. An evil god worshipper. That had to be it. I must have joined a cult to get a sudden boost in power. On Crimson Yellow Planet, information about outer evil gods was public knowledge to keep people on guard. These gods could corrupt souls and grant terrifying power to their followers. Xiaofeng was convinced. There was no other way I could have beaten him. He decided he had to report me to the Bureau of Enforcement. He opened his wrist terminal and started typing the number. He wanted me gone. Even if the Bureau didn't find anything, it was just a phone call. But as he was about to hit dial, a hazy, whispering voice echoed in his mind. Faith in my lord can give you power. Power to defeat Lin Yuan. Power to kill him. Xiao Feng's eyes went cloudy. The rage in his heart drowned out his ability to think. He started muttering to himself like he'd lost his mind. If he took the power of an evil god, wouldn't he be even stronger? His eyes cleared, but they were filled with a new, arrogant madness. Defeating me wasn't enough. He wanted to crush teacher Fang Xiong and Wang Qianjun too. He wanted the power to kill anyone who looked down on him. The next morning, I woke up feeling stronger than ever. As expected, with the first-class bone talent, I had successfully broken through to body tempering level 3. When I arrived at the martial arts class, Fang Xiong pulled me aside. He told me that Xiao Feng had called in sick. The kid had lost too much face yesterday to show his head. He'll probably be too ashamed to show his face in class for a few days, Fang Xiong said with a light chuckle. He didn't seem to care at all. In fact, he looked like he was enjoying Xiao Feng's misfortune. It was rare to see a teacher show such blatant bias against his own student, but I didn't mind. I was done with Xiao Feng. Out of sight, out of mind. I led Teacher Feng to a quiet corner of the training hall. Teacher Feng, I have a question. Go ahead, he replied. Do you know any ways to make money? I asked, rubbing my face. I had the first-class bone talent now, and my cultivation speed had skyrocketed, but it still wasn't enough. If I had the cash for body-tempering supplements and pills, I could move even faster. Martial arts was a rich man's game. Biohumans rarely succeeded because we started life buried under a 1,000,000 credit debt. Without resources, even a genius eventually fades into a nobody. Money, huh? Fang Xiong scratched his head and sighed. It's normal for a biohuman to be broke at the start. I know some wealthy merchants whose kids need sparring partners. But they require your basic martial arts to be at the proficient level. Your thunderclap saber is at large success, which is good, but it's not quite there yet. Without that proficient rank, you won't earn much, and it'll just waste your training time. If you can hit that level, I can get you gigs paying tens of thousands of credits per session. Proficient level. I ran the numbers in my head. With my saber grandmaster talent, I could probably push my thunderclap saber to proficient in about 10 days. Teacher, I'm actually a late bloomer, I said seriously. My progress has been fast lately. Give me 10 days. A late bloomer? Fang Xiong laughed. He knew exactly what I was implying. Kid, even Wang Qianjuan's spear technique is only at the proficient level. That's practically the ceiling for basic martial arts. To go higher, to perfection, you need to grasp the actual intent of the art. You can't force that. He wasn't looking down on me, but 10 days to jump a whole rank was a lot. Even he could barely manage that, and he was a veteran. Did I really have saber talent that rivaled his? It seemed impossible to him. He might not have made it into the Clash of Stars, but he was a known genius in the Mozhan Star sector back in his day. 10 days. Just 10 days. I repeated. I didn't explain. I just let the confidence in my voice do the talking. Fine. I'll wait 10 days, Fang Xiong said, looking intrigued. He suddenly waved his hand. 10 glass bottles filled with a vibrant red liquid appeared out of thin air, floating between us. My eyes nearly popped out of my head. Storage equipment? I'd only ever read about stuff like that. You couldn't buy that on Crimson Yellow Planet. It's a portable subspace. They only sell these in the core areas of the Mozhan Star sector. Fang Xiong corrected me. He pointed at the bottles. These are 10 high-grade body-tempering supplements. It should last you a month. I stared at them, hesitant to reach out. These were 5,000 credits a bottle. This was 50,000 credits worth of gear just floating there. Are you just giving these to me? Just take them. Think of it as a loan. You can pay me back later, Fang Xiong said with a dismissive wave. I have no family, no kids. These are useless to me. I might as well put them to good use. He paused, his expression softening. To be honest, I was a biohuman too. I know how hard the struggle is. Don't overthink it. I was stunned. I never expected that. Biohumans rarely had the talent or the luck to make it big. For Fang Xiong to fight his way off this planet and make a name for himself in the sector was an incredible feat. It explained everything, why he helped me, and why he hated Xiao Feng's constant discrimination against biohumans. Teacher Feng, thank you. I'm taking these as a loan. I'll pay you back tenfold, I said, my voice heavy with resolve. If you're aiming for the Clash of Stars, Don't sweat the small stuff, he joked. But I could see he appreciated the sentiment. He glanced over at Wang Qianjun, who was watching us from across the room. Specifically, he was watching me. By the way, Fang Xiong added, Wang Qianjun thinks yesterday's win was unfair because he had a better weapon. He's got too much pride. He wants a rematch. I walked over to Wang Qianjun. You want to go again? I had already gotten what I wanted from him, the first-class bone talent. I didn't think he'd be the one asking for more. What? Is the martial madman afraid of a fight? Wang Qianjun grabbed a wooden saber from the rack and tossed it at me. He picked up a wooden spear, testing its weight with a frown. After yesterday, the rumor had spread like wildfire. Everyone thought I was a combat-obsessed freak because I had been smiling even while unconscious after our fight. A martial madman doesn't turn down a challenge. I caught the saber by the hilt and grinned. The more fights, the better. My persona was working. Now, I just had to keep it up. The crowd gathered quickly. It was the same scene as yesterday, but the whispers had changed. I caught snippets of their conversations as I faced off against Wang Qianjun. It's Lin Yuan again, one student muttered. The guy is a total psycho. He just lost yesterday, and now he's back for more. He's like a piece of gum stuck to your shoe. Another laughed. Doesn't he have any shame? The gap between them is huge. This isn't a fight. It's a joke. I didn't care. Their mockery meant nothing to me. I took a single step forward, covering 10 meters in a blur. I didn't wait for him to move. I attacked first. My thunderclap saber technique was at the mastery stage. It was fast, loud, and aggressive. I swung the wooden blade toward Wang Qianjuan's calm face. He didn't flinch. With a low growl, he swung his spear in a wide, powerful arc. It was the army breaker spear style, heavy and oppressive. The moment our weapons clashed, I noticed something strange. I looked up, meeting his eyes. He was holding back. He was intentionally suppressing his strength and speed to match mine. He wanted to see whose pure skill was superior. I saw your saber work yesterday. Wang Qianjun grunted as our weapons ground against each other. It was good. Today, I want to see if your blade is faster than my spear is fierce. He was a proud genius. Even though he'd won yesterday, the fact that a weakling like me had blocked his spear at all had been eating at him. He needed to prove he was better in every single category, not just in raw power, but in technique too. Fine, I said, a golden glint flashing in my eyes. Let's see. If he had used his full cultivation, I wouldn't have stood a chance. The gap in power was a literal mountain. But a contest of skill? My Master of Saber's talent didn't just help me learn moves. It gave me an incredible sense of timing and battlefield awareness. The wooden spear and saber collided again and again. The dull thuds echoed through the gym, making the spectators wince. The crowd went silent. They realized what was happening. Wang Qianjun was trying to dismantle me with pure finesse. But I wasn't falling apart. Wang Qianjuan's heart sank as the minutes passed. My thunderclap style was only at the mastery level, technically lower than his spear arts, but my timing was perfect. Every time he tried to build momentum, I struck. I hit him right at the moment his strength was transitioning, forcing him to cancel his moves. He was fighting at 70% efficiency, and it was driving him crazy. I'm ending this, he roared. He stepped back, then lunged forward like an arrow released from a bow. This was his finishing move, Sun Piercer. The wooden tip of the spear became a blur of lethal intent, aimed straight for my chest. I saw it coming. Because he was going all in on this strike, he couldn't retreat. His weakness was exposed. I moved, not far, just a tiny shift in posture. I was fast, like a bolt of lightning. My saber moved at an impossible angle, slicing through the air to reach his hip before his spear could touch my skin. Time seemed to freeze. The spear tip brushed past my armpit, harmlessly hitting empty air. My wooden saber was pressed firmly against Wang Qianjuan's side. He gasped, his body tilting from the phantom impact. He looked at the blade at his waist, his face a mask of shock. He dropped his spear. I lost, he said, his voice a dry whisper. In a fair fight of skill, I couldn't beat you. I lowered my saber, my heart racing. You're a level 8 body refiner, I reminded him. If you hadn't held back your power, I wouldn't be standing. He shook his head. I have my own standards. A loss is a loss. He walked away without another word. The gym was deathly quiet. The students looked like they had seen a ghost. A few days ago, I was the bottom of the class. Now, I had just outskilled the school's top genius. From the sidelines, Fang Xiong watched me with a strange expression. He saw his own younger self in my movements. The same grit, the same sharp edge. For a moment, he thought about taking me on as a true disciple, but he brushed the thought aside. Being his student was a dangerous path, one he wasn't sure I was ready for. As I walked through the crowd, the atmosphere had shifted. The contempt and mockery were gone, replaced by a heavy, uncomfortable respect. I didn't stop to celebrate. I was busy analyzing my system. I had confirmed something important. I couldn't copy the same person twice. I had already taken Wang Qianjuan's talent, and this fight didn't give me anything new from him. To test my limits, I spent the rest of the day challenging other students under the guise of being a martial madman. I fought 15 people. I only got 2 new talents. First was strong constitution, a white-grade talent that helped purify my blood and keep my mind sharp. I felt the brain fog lift instantly. Second was exemplary swordsmanship, another white-grade talent that tripled my comprehension of sword arts. It was clear now. Most people are just average. If their talent was lower than what I already possessed, I got nothing. I realized there were 2 laws to my ability. I could only copy a person once, and I could only steal what was better than my own. I looked at my hands. I was getting stronger, but white-grade talents wouldn't be enough to get me off this planet. I needed more. I needed bigger targets. I had established 2 fundamental laws for my ability. First, I could only copy a person once, and the talent I received was random. I couldn't guarantee I'd get their best one. Second, not everyone possessed a talent. Most people were just average, with nothing worth taking. To maximize my growth, I needed to hunt for elite geniuses. However, I wasn't above collecting common talents either. Quantity had a quality of its own, and since it was free, I wasn't going to complain. My strategy was set. Target top-tier geniuses as my primary source of power, while using ordinary talents as supplementary fuel. After school, I didn't linger. My mind was busy simulating the movements of the thunderclap blade as I walked home. Suddenly, the loud pop and crackle of firecrackers broke my concentration. I looked up and saw a crowd gathered in front of a new martial arts hall. It was their grand opening. I froze. A martial arts hall? How could I have forgotten about these places? My eyes lit up as a plan took shape. I had been agonizing over how to find more opponents. Aside from Wang Qianjun and my classmates, I didn't have access to many martial artists. But a martial arts hall had to have experts on staff to protect its reputation. If I wanted to fight, I just had to walk through the door. Of course, challenging the hall sounded a bit too aggressive. I preferred to call it a friendly exchange of skills. I turned away from the path to my apartment and headed toward the celebration. The ground was littered with red paper from the fireworks. A large sign stood by the entrance, Howieing Martial Arts Hall Grand Opening, Combat Challenge Event. The rules were simple. Win a match, earn 1,000 crimson yellow coins. If you lost, you didn't know a cent. I grinned. I could copy talents and get paid for it. This was perfect. I didn't hesitate and stepped inside. A man named Hao Sangue greeted me with a professional smile. When I pointed to the sign and said I was there for the challenge, his grin widened. He had set up this event to showcase his school's strength. He wanted as many challengers as possible to attract new students. He wasn't worried about the money. He had skilled fighters on standby to make sure no one actually cleaned him out. "What's your name, kid? And your cultivation level?" Hao Sangue asked, leading me toward the back. "Lin Yuan. 3rd stage body tempering," I replied. We reached a raised ring where several young men in uniforms were lounging. They looked at me like a wolf looks at a sheep. I heard them whispering. One joked about the high school kid the boss had lured in, while another reminded him to go easy so I wouldn't get discouraged from signing up for classes. I ignored them. To make the challenge official, the hall had to field decent fighters. Hao Sangue signaled for a student named Wang Zhou to step up. I picked up a wooden training saber from the rack. Wang Zhou chose a wooden sword. We stepped onto the mat, facing each other. "I'll be the referee," Hao Sangue said, standing between us. "Don't worry about injuries. I'll step in if things get dangerous." I nodded. He raised his hand and dropped it sharply. "Begin." We moved at the same time. The wood collided with a heavy thud. We were both at the third stage of body tempering, so our speed should have been identical. But as we locked blades, I felt my strength edge him out. Hao Sangui noticed it too. He watched as Wang Zhou's sword was slowly pushed back. He wasn't worried yet. Some people were just naturally stronger or faster. In his mind, that didn't matter. Wang Zhou had practiced the 7-star sword style for years. Technique would always trump raw power against a high schooler. On the stage, I was actually struggling, not with the fight, but with my acting. With my Blade Master talent, I could have ended this in seconds. Even Wang Qianjun couldn't beat me in a fair exchange of forms. But if I won too easily, the hall would send out their strongest expert immediately, and the exchange would end. I wanted to fight as many people as possible. Even a minor talent was better than nothing. I exhaled, making it look like I was straining. I kept my movements just slightly better than Wang Zhou's. We went back and forth for 5 minutes before I finally barely managed to strike his chest. Wang Zhou lost. The other students gasped. They couldn't believe their junior brother had been beaten by a random kid. Master, I failed, Wang Zhou said, hanging his head in shame. Victory and defeat are common in martial arts. Hao Sangui consoled him, though his eyes were now fixed on me. He felt something was off about the fight, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Luong, you're up. A tall man stepped into the ring and took the wooden sword. He had incredibly thick legs, noticeable even through his loose trousers. Kid, I'm at the 5th stage, Luong said. I'll suppress my strength and speed to the 3rd stage for the fight. You okay with that? I looked at his legs and felt a surge of anticipation. I hadn't gotten a talent from Wang Zhou, but this guy? He definitely had something special in those legs. Let's go, I said, tightening my grip on the saber. Hao Sangui raised his right hand and dropped it heavily. The signal was given. Luong moved instantly. Just by his opening stance, I could tell this guy was on a different level than Wang Zhou. His sword technique was at least at the Grandmaster level of mastery. I cursed internally. This was going to be hard to fake. I couldn't just barely win anymore. If I played too weak, he'd actually take my head off. I decided to stop pretending. Acting was starting to feel awkward anyway. If I wanted to beat a Grandmaster-level swordsman, I had to take him seriously. I shifted my grip, and my Thunder Saber technique, already at Grandmaster level, flared to life. I knew it, Hao Sangui muttered from the sidelines. The kid was hiding his strength. He figured I was just sandbagging to drag out the fights and farm more crimson yellow coins. Even Wang Zhou, nursing his pride below the ring, realized I'd been going easy on him. They all thought I was just a greedy brat looking for a quick payday. In the ring, our blades clashed. I felt a massive jolt run up my arms. This guy's power was insane. Even with my ape arms talent, he was pushing me back. He had suppressed his cultivation to the 3rd stage, but his strength was still overwhelming. It all came from his legs. They were rooted to the ground like ancient trees, allowing him to funnel every ounce of power from the earth into his strikes. Hao Sangui smirked. He'd picked Luong specifically to counter me. He'd seen my arm strength earlier and knew Lu Eng's rock-solid lower body was the perfect shield. But his smile didn't last long. With my Blade Master talent, I didn't need brute force. I saw the tiny, microscopic flaws in Lu Eng's form. I stopped fighting his strength and started fighting his rhythm. With a sudden, sharp flick of my saber, I caught the edge of his blade and sent his wooden sword flying out of his hands. I win, I said with a thin smile. The familiar notification flashed before my eyes. Asterisk battle complete. Talent copied. Asterisk. I had snatched a new one. Elephant legs. It was a white-grade talent. Immediately, I felt my leg muscles tighten and densify. I felt a strange, heavy sensation, as if I were literally growing roots into the floor. Power began to flow upward from the ground, through my legs, and into my entire body. This was much more potent than the gray-grade, ape arms, I got from Xiaofeng. It proved my theory, white-grade talents were where the real changes started. The crowd went silent. Luong had lost in the blink of an eye. He walked over to Hao Sangui, his expression grim. Master, that last strike. He hit the exact pressure point of my 7-star sword style. This kid isn't simple. Hao Sangui's smile was completely gone now. He stared at me, wondering if I was a genius sent by a rival gym to humiliate him. He signaled Luong, who nodded and hurried away. A moment later, he returned with a girl. She looked to be about my age, wearing a school uniform and carrying an air of sharp, cold authority. The second she saw me, she spoke. "So, you're the one here to kick the doors down?" "I'm not here to challenge the gym," I replied, shaking my head. "Just a friendly exchange." "Whatever you say," she said, yawning. She stepped onto the stage and looked at Hao Sangui. "Dad, you pulled me out of class for this? Let's just get it over with." Be careful," Hao Sangui warned. "He's prepared." I squinted at her. She had a level of absolute confidence I'd only seen in people like Wang Qianjun. It was the kind of confidence that came from being told you're a genius every day of your life, and actually having the strength to back it up. I licked my lips. I wanted her talent. "Why are you looking at me like a freak?" she muttered, frowning. The fight started, and the pressure hit me like a tidal wave. She was just as fast as Wang Qianjun, and her sword technique was flawless. But I had improved, too. My elephant legs kept me anchored, and my blade master talent let me read her movements before she even made them. Even though I was only at the third stage of body tempering, I was holding my own against her. She's frustration grew. She realized I was predicting her every move, cutting off her momentum before she could build it. It was making her feel physically sick, like her blood was flowing backward. Below the ring, the students gasped. She was their ultimate trump card, and she was actually being pushed back. Sensing the eyes of the crowd, she grew desperate. Her form slipped. She left a massive opening in her defense. "Got you," I thought. I lunged forward, my saber aimed at her chest. Suddenly, her speed exploded. It wasn't skill, it was raw, unbridled power. She abandoned the rules and unleashed her full cultivation at the 8th stage. Her sword slammed into me with the force of a truck, sending me flying clear off the stage. "Wait, I forgot to hold back." She gasped, realizing she'd just cheated in a public exhibition match meant to show off technique, not brute force. Hao Sangui blurred into motion, catching me before I hit the ground. "Are you all right, little brother?" I wasn't angry. I was grinning. As I stood up, the system text scrolled past my vision. Asterisk battle complete. Talent copied. Fortune's aura, blue grade, that asterisk. "I'm sorry," she said, looking embarrassed. I reacted instinctively. "I broke the rules. This round you win." She jumped down from the ring immediately, her face pale with worry. Once she saw I was still breathing and hadn't been broken into pieces, she let out a long sigh of relief. If a student died during her family gym's grand opening, the legal trouble would never end. Stage 8 of body tempering. I muttered to myself, feeling the ache in my ribs. Truly impressive. I realized then that even with my stack of copied talents, a 5-stage gap in cultivation was a mountain I couldn't climb yet. My round arm and elephant legs made me better than the average person, but they couldn't bridge the massive divide in raw power, speed, and physical constitution. She had swatted me away like a fly. I had 5 sets of first-class bone talent now, but jumping 5 levels in a short time was still impossible. I needed something stronger. I needed better talents. I shook my head and stood up, brushing the dust off my clothes. "To be honest," I said, looking at Hao Sangui, "I just wanted to challenge someone strong. Winning or losing doesn't matter to me." I meant it. Just like I told Wang Qianjun before, cultivation level is part of a person's strength. There was no point in making excuses for losing. Besides, I had just walked away with a blue-grade talent. I had no reason to complain. Challenge the strong? Hao Sangui raised an eyebrow, his eyes narrowing. "Are you for real? You weren't sent here by a rival gym to cause trouble?" He clearly didn't believe a genius like me would show up just for a small cash prize. But some people really are just obsessed with fighting. "I'm not affiliated with any gym," I told him plainly. "And I plan on visiting other gyms in Jiang City to challenge them, too." Hao Sangui looked shocked. "You're going to kick their doors down, too?" "Look, kid, I'm running a grand opening promotion, so I played nice. But those old, established gyms? They won't have my patience. If you walk in there and challenge them, they'll see it as a direct insult. They won't match your cultivation level for a fair fight. They'll send their best to break you just to save face." Even how she was staring at me now. She wouldn't even dream of doing something that provocative. It was social suicide. Like I said, I repeated, I like challenging experts. I didn't waste time arguing. I pulled up the payment code on my wrist terminal. Hao Sangue didn't hesitate and scanned it. When the notification popped up, I frowned. The prize was supposed to be 3,000 crimson yellow coins, but he had sent me 10,000. Boss, you sent too much, I said. Nothing in this world is free. Hao Sangue laughed and waved his hand. The 3,000 is yours. The extra 7,000? Think of it as a favor. If you're really going to keep challenging gyms, make sure the Jixiong gym is next on your list. If you don't go, keep the money anyway. Consider it a gift. I understood immediately. He wanted to use me as a hired thug to mess with his competition. I didn't mind. I was going to hit every gym in the city anyway. The order didn't matter. Does this Jixiong gym have any geniuses like Hao Shi? I asked. Hao Sangue thought I was worried about getting hurt. He puffed out his chest proudly. My daughter is the class monitor of the Jiang City High School martial arts class. She's a top-tier talent destined for a major university. You think geniuses like her grow on trees? Don't worry. The owner of Jixiong won't step in himself. At most, you'll face a few students at the 6th or 7th stage. You might not win, but you'll be able to protect yourself. I felt a pang of disappointment. I wasn't scared, I was bored. Was that it? Only stage 6 or 7. Hao Sangue, and noticed my expression and muttered under his breath. This kid is a total martial arts nut. Only a fanatic would look disappointed at the news that they wouldn't be facing a deadly opponent. Fine, I sighed. If I go out tomorrow, Jixiong Gym will be my first stop. Geniuses like Hao Shi and Wang Qianjun were rare in a place like Jiang City. I had to accept that. Even if I only copied low-level gray or white talents for a while, it was better than nothing. When I got back to my cramped room, I pulled up my status panel. I was surprised to see the new entry, Fortune's Aura, Blue. I expected a bone talent or maybe a sword talent from Hao Shi. I never thought luck or aura would be something I could copy. Was she the protagonist of Jiang City? It made sense. Talents are diverse, and true geniuses usually have several. Fang Xiong was a saber master, but he likely had elite bone talents and aura talents too. I had only managed to snag one piece of her potential. That was my second blue talent. I only needed one more to unlock a new feature on my system panel. But where would I find another top-tier genius? They didn't exactly hang out on street corners. The university entrance exam was my best bet, but that was months away. I needed to be stronger before the exam. I decided I'd ask Teacher Fong for a list of local talents tomorrow. I lay on my bed and scrolled through the local news on my terminal. A headline immediately caught my eye. Asterisk family of 3 murdered in Jiang City. Organs devoured. Suspected evil god cultists. Asterisk. Even with the pixelated censors, the crime scene photos were horrific. This world was plagued by outer gods, entities that corrupted the minds of the weak and turned them into monsters. I checked the location. It was only 3 kilometers from my room, right on my usual route home. I felt a chill. I needed to buy a real blade tomorrow, just in case. I noted down the addresses of several gyms, including Jixiong, and then hopped off the bed. It was time to work. I took a dose of the high-grade body tempering solution Fang Xiong had given me. As soon as I started my treading stance training, a surge of energy erupted from my stomach, flooding my limbs. With my 5-fold first-class bone talent, the absorption rate was insane. Usually, one dose would last a student 3 days. For me, it would be gone in 1. Efficiency costs money, I sighed. I was getting stronger faster than anyone, but I was also burning through resources like a furnace. I needed to master the Thunderstrike Saber technique soon. Once I reached the mastery level, I could start looking for ways to make some real cash. Even though I had copied a Saber Grandmaster's talent, I knew I couldn't just sit around and wait for power to fall into my lap. Talent was a multiplier, but 0 times anything was still 0. The next morning, I was the first one to arrive at the martial arts class. I drew my practice blade and began running through the Thunderstrike Saber forms. It felt different now. Every time I swung the sword, I could feel the progress. It was addictive. What took others years of bitter practice, I was absorbing in days. At this rate, 10 days would be more than enough to push the technique to the mastery level. Time blurred as I lost myself in the rhythm of the blade. But then, a voice broke my focus. Still as hard-working as ever, I see, Lin Yuan. I stopped mid-swing and narrowed my eyes. Xiaofeng was standing at the door. His wounds from our last fight seemed completely healed. You recovered fast, I said, offering a thin smile. I didn't just recover fast, Xiaofeng replied. His voice sounded off, sharper, colder. Without another word, he grabbed a practice saber from the rack by the door. In a blur of motion, he lunged. He didn't hesitate. He didn't bow. He just attacked. My pupils shrank. I barely got my blade up in time to block. The impact vibrated all the way down to my marrow. He was stronger. Much stronger. His speed and power had jumped an entire tier in a single day. Even his 9-wave saber technique, which I had mocked before, seemed terrifyingly precise. I stepped back to reset, but he was already on me. His second strike came down like a falling mountain. I parried, aiming for the weak point in his momentum, but he didn't falter. He transitioned into a third strike instantly. If this were yesterday, I would have been finished. But I wasn't the same either. With the combined power of my ape arms, elephant legs, and first-class bone, my raw strength far exceeded a standard grade 3 practitioner. My strong kidneys kept my energy at a constant peak. Our blades clashed with a dull thud. We both recoiled several steps, ending in a dead heat. I stared at him, my heart racing. Did this guy have a breakthrough or something? His speed and power were now comparable to a grade 6 expert. A one-day difference shouldn't result in this much growth. For a second, I wondered if he had a secret system of his own. You aren't the only one getting stronger, Lin Yuan, Xiaofeng sneered. He prepared to lunge again, but the sound of other students chatting in the hallway reached us. He froze. In an instant, his aggressive posture vanished, replaced by his usual arrogant mask. I didn't look away. As I stared at him, a string of texts suddenly flickered across my vision. Battle completed. Talent replication successful. Replicated talent. Gluttony factor, green. Effect. Digestion and absorption efficiency greatly increased. Warning. Due to replicating an evil god factor, the system has adaptively generated mental fortitude, gray. Effect. Slight resistance to mental erosion from evil gods or external forces. Cold sweat broke out on my back. Xiaofeng hadn't just had a breakthrough. He had become an evil god cultist. Wait, it was worse than that. My system allowed me to copy a person's talent only once. I had already copied Xiaofeng's ape arms. The fact that the system let me copy him again meant that, as far as the interface was concerned, the thing standing in front of me was no longer Xiaofeng. The shell was the same. The memories might be there. But the core was something else. It was a monster. I kept my face neutral, pretending to go back to my practice. I couldn't let him know I knew. When teacher Fang Xiong finally arrived, I waited for a moment when we were alone. What's wrong? Fang Xiong asked with a chuckle. Is 10 days not enough? Do you need an extension for the saber technique? Teacher, this is serious, I whispered, cutting him off. I think Xiaofeng has been corrupted. I think he's an evil god cultist. Fang Xiong's smile vanished. He glanced toward Xiaofeng, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the boy. After a long moment, he shook his head. Lin Yuan, don't throw around accusations like that. You had a sudden awakening of talent. Why can't he? People bloom late all the time. If we suspected everyone who improved quickly, society would collapse. He looked at me pointedly. Honestly, compared to my recent growth, Xiaofeng's jump was almost normal. I'm telling you he's different, I insisted, my voice dropping lower. But I had no proof. I couldn't tell him about the system. Don't overthink it, Fang Xiong said, patting my shoulder. I'll keep an eye on him for the next few days. Just focus on your training. He walked away, leaving me standing there. I couldn't focus for the rest of the day. If Xiaofeng was a cultist, his twisted mind would likely seek revenge for the humiliation I'd dealt him. If he brought a group of them to ambush me, I was dead. I pulled out my terminal and sent an anonymous tip to the Law Enforcement Bureau. I waited. By the time school ended, nobody had come to take him away. Either they lacked evidence, or they were just as skeptical as Fang Xiong. Or, in the worst-case scenario, the Bureau itself was compromised. As I left the school grounds, I felt a gaze on my back. I turned. Xiaofeng was watching me. He flashed a smile, a slow, hollow expression that didn't reach his eyes. I didn't wait. I moved fast, heading straight for a weapons shop I'd looked up earlier. I need a blade, I told the clerk. Sharp as possible. My budget is 10,000 credits. The clerk lined up 3 sabers. This one is called Blood Silver. It's the best quality we have, but it's 13,000. I'll take it, I said instantly. I swiped my card, emptying the 10,000 I'd earned from the gym plus every cent of my savings. Money was useless if I wasn't alive to spend it. That night, I didn't train. I sat in my cramped cage room, the blood silver saber resting across my lap. I watched the door, listening to every creak in the hallway. I thought about the news reports, the devoured organs, the blood-smeared walls. I didn't close my eyes once. My nerves were stretched to the breaking point. Cultists aren't human anymore. There's no telling what they'll do. Xiaofeng already hated me to my core, and now that he'd fallen into darkness, I knew I was his primary target. I sat in my cage room until the early hours of the morning. The hallway remained deathly silent, but I didn't dare sleep. I was terrified that if I closed my eyes, I'd never open them again. My mind was spiraling. I knew that if I kept this up, I'd have a mental breakdown before the sun rose. I was scared. I was shaking. I couldn't even think about my training or the martial arts gym. I had finally awakened my talent copying ability. I finally had a chance to walk among the stars. I couldn't let it all end here, butchered by some freak in a dark hallway. I wouldn't allow it. The floorboards creaked as I stood up. I gripped the hilt of the blood-silver saber and kicked my door open. There's an old saying, a thief can wait for 1,000 days, but you can't guard against a thief for 1,000 days. If he was coming for me, I wasn't going to wait. I was going to kill him first. I knew where he lived. Xiaofeng loved to brag about his family's apartment in the River Bend district, a luxury complex for natural humans. I took a cab, scaled the perimeter wall, and slipped inside the lobby behind a resident. I took the elevator to the 7th floor and stopped in front of room 702. Inside that apartment, steam filled the air. Xiaofeng's face was a blur behind the mist of a boiling pot. Inside the water, jagged organs bobbed up and down, turning a sickly white. Lin Yuan, Wang Qianjun, and finally, Feng Xiong. Xiaofeng muttered to himself. He reached into the boiling water with his bare hand, pulled out a piece of grayish-red meat, and began to chew. Don't worry. Once my brothers and sisters arrive, I'll taste every one of you. Asterisk knock. 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 Asterisk. The sudden sound made him freeze. His expression smoothed out instantly. He walked to the door and peered through the peephole, but it was pitch black. Someone was blocking the view. Asterisk knock. 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 Asterisk the knocking grew more frantic. Xiaofeng smiled, a twisted, hungry look. He thought someone had just delivered themselves to his dinner table. He slowly unlatched the door and pulled it open. The second the gap appeared, I jammed my arm in and slammed the door wide. Before he could react, a cold flash of white light cut through the steam. My saber pierced straight through his heart. I twisted the blade and ripped upward, the sharp edge shearing through his chest and severing his left arm clean off the shoulder. I stepped into the light, my face grim. I'd planned this since I left my room. One strike to end it. But because the doorway was narrow, I hadn't been able to get a clean swing. Lin Yuan, you're looking for death. Xiaofeng didn't scream. He didn't even seem to feel the pain. His mouth began to split open, past the normal limits of a human jaw, tearing all the way back to his ears. Foul, bloody mucus dripped from his throat. Inside his massive maw, rows of jagged, backward-growing teeth snapped at the air. You're the one dying. I yelled. My heart hammered against my ribs, but fear turned into pure rage. I lunged forward with my thunderstrike technique. The blood-silver saber flashed, aiming for his neck. Again, the cramped hallway worked against me. The blade buried itself halfway through his spine and got stuck. Xiaofeng let out a wet, gurgling laugh. His remaining right hand clawed at my throat while his massive, distorted jaw lunged for my head. If that mouth closed on me, my skull would be crushed like an eggshell. Thanks to my blade eye talent, I saw it coming. I let go of the saber and ducked. His teeth snapped shut on empty air. I followed up with a brutal front kick that sent him reeling backward. Before he could recover, I leaped onto his chest, pinning him down. I grabbed the hilt of the saber with both hands and pressed down with everything I had. The shopkeeper hadn't lied. 13,000 credits bought a very sharp blade. It sliced through his neck like hot wire through butter. Xiaofeng's head rolled across the floor. Even then, his mouth continued to snap open and shut. Lin, Yuan, the severed head hissed. My skin crawled. How was he still moving? Panic took over. I raised the saber and hacked at the head again and again, over and over, until the mouth stopped moving and the floor was covered in a red slurry. I slumped back, my muscles aching and my lungs burning. Is he finally dead? I whispered, staring at the remains. Suddenly, I heard rapid footsteps coming from the elevator. My body went rigid. Was it a cultist ally? I gripped the bloody saber and pressed myself against the wall near the door, waiting for the shadow to turn the corner. As soon as the figure appeared, I swung the thunder strike. Clang. The blade didn't hit flesh. 2 fingers, an index and a thumb, caught the edge of my saber with ease. Lin Yuan, what the hell are you doing here? I looked up. It was Fang Xiong. He looked at the blood on my hands, then at the carnage on the floor, his eyes wide with shock. After our talk today, he'd decided to keep an eye on Xiaofeng's place just in case, even though he hadn't believed me. He'd smelled the blood from the hallway and rushed up. Teacher Fang. I let out a jagged breath and collapsed onto the floor. I was scared. I was so scared. I looked at him, my voice trembling. I was afraid he'd kill me in my sleep. I was afraid he'd bring his friends to ambush me. I was afraid I'd die for nothing. I was just so scared. Fang Xiong looked past me into the room. He saw the mangled head, the severed limbs, and the torso that had been hacked into multiple pieces. He looked back at me, his expression saying, "Are you kidding me right now?" Being scared usually meant hiding under the covers or calling the police. It didn't usually involve traveling across town to commit a frantic, tactical dismemberment. Teacher, I'm not lying. I insisted, pointing at the mess. He was a cultist. Look at his mouth. Fang Xiong sighed, his shock fading into grim realization. Even though the head was a mess, the unnatural jaw and the rows of teeth were unmistakable. Xiaofeng had definitely turned. I had been right all along. He looked at me, then at the saber, then back at the body. He still looked stunned. You're right, he muttered. I was wrong about him. But Lin Yuan, we need to talk about your definition of scared. Fang Xiong looked me in the eye, his expression heavy. Lin Yuan, he started, weren't you afraid of being wrong? What if Xiaofeng wasn't a cultist? If you were wrong, this would be a premeditated murder. Your entire life would be over. Didn't you think about the what-ifs? I looked back at him and repeated the only truth I had. Teacher Fang, I told you. I was scared. Fang Xiong went silent. He didn't know what to say to that. The students at school called me a martial arts lunatic, and honestly, I used to think that was an exaggeration. Now, looking at the mess I'd made, even Fang Xiong seemed to realize I was actually a bit crazy. Maybe more than a bit. Just rest for a second, he sighed. Let me check the rest of the place. He walked into the master bedroom. A moment later, he emerged carrying 2 bodies, laying them gently on the living room floor. Those damn cultists, he cursed under his breath. I wiped my face and glanced at the bodies. It was a man and a woman. They looked a lot like Xiaofeng. But their heads, a large chunk of their skulls had been bitten off. Their brains were gone. Their stomachs had been ripped open, and their internal organs were missing. These were Xiaofeng's parents, Fang Xiong said, his voice tight. They were likely killed this afternoon. If I had just believed you earlier, I might have been able to stop this. I felt a chill run down my spine. The crime scene looked exactly like the news reports I'd seen recently. Wait, I muttered. Does that mean the other murders were Xiaofeng's doing too? My internal interface hadn't lied. Once someone fell to a dark god, they weren't human anymore. They were something else entirely. But then a terrifying thought hit me. Xiaofeng had only turned in the last day or two. The news reports were from 5 days ago. That meant there were other cultists in Jiang City, probably followers of the same dark god. If I killed Xiaofeng, would the others come for me? I felt a genuine surge of fear. It's easy to dodge a spear in the light, but hard to avoid an arrow in the dark. I was too weak. Being at the 3rd stage of body tempering wasn't enough. If I were at the peak, or even a master beyond the illusion realm, I wouldn't have to worry about some bottom-tier cultists. At that moment, my desire for power reached a breaking point. I needed to get stronger. Fast. Fang Xiong didn't notice my internal panic. He pulled out his phone and dialed the enforcement bureau. Within minutes, the street below was filled with flashing lights. A team of officers in specialized uniforms swarmed the apartment. As the primary witness, and the killer, they wanted to take me in for questioning. "He's my student," Fang Xiong said, leaning against the wall and blocking their path. "If you have questions, ask them here." He looked at me and nodded. "Don't worry. You did the right thing. Just tell the truth." The lead officer frowned. "Sir, I'm performing official duties. Please step aside." Fang Xiong didn't argue. He just pulled a badge from his pocket and tossed it over. The officer's face went pale the moment he saw it. He made a quick phone call, then handed the badge back with a deep bow. "Officer Fang, my apologies. Please, tell us exactly what happened." While they talked to him, another officer pulled me aside. "Name, age." "Lin Yuan, 18. After the basics, he got to the point. "You suspected Xiao Feng was a cultist, but you had no proof. Why did you break in and kill him? Why were you so certain? Weren't you afraid of making a mistake?" I gave him the same honest answer. "Because I was scared." Fang Xiong's eyelid twitched. The recording officer froze, his pen hovering over the paper. "Because you were scared?" he repeated. It was a ridiculous reason for a brutal killing. My student has some issues," Fang Xiong interrupted, pointing to his own head. "Nothing serious. He's just prone to extreme stress responses. You know how it is." With Fang Xiong backing me, they didn't push further. They finished the report and let me go. I was exhausted. It had been a long day, and all I wanted was to crawl into bed and sleep for a week. "Wait, don't leave yet," Fang Xiong said, grabbing my shoulder. He led me back to the lead officer. "My student killed a cultist. According to the law, there's a bounty for that. You aren't planning on cheating a kid out of his reward, are you?" "Bounty?" My ears perked up. "How much?" The officer thought for a moment. He was a fresh convert. His rank wasn't high. "The bounty is usually around 100,000 credits. I'll process it at the maximum rate for you." 100,000? My heart skipped a beat. That was enough to buy 20 sets of high-grade cultivation supplements. It would more than pay for the blood silver saber I'd just bought. I realized then that cultists were actually walking gold mines. Not only did they have talents I could copy, but they were worth a fortune in cash. I looked at the blood-stained room, my fears slowly turning into greed. "Don't get any stupid ideas," Fang Xiong warned, sensing my change in mood. "You only won because he was a new convert, and you caught him by surprise. If you run into a strong one, you won't even have time to scream." I just smiled and stayed quiet. If I was weak, I'd hide. But once I got strong, these cultists were going to be my best resource. The news the next day didn't mention my name to protect me from retaliation. The 100,000 credits hit my account by noon. For the next week, things stayed quiet. I didn't waste a second. I spent my time training and researching the various martial arts gyms in Jiang City. I also squeezed Fang Xiong for info on the city's top geniuses. During that week of intense practice, something clicked. My Thunder Flash Saber technique finally leveled up. Crack! A sound like a thunderclap echoed through my training space. My blade moved like liquid silver, fast as a lightning bolt. I sheathed the blood silver saber, feeling the power thrumming in my arms. At the proficient level, the speed of my strike had reached its peak. Most 5th or 6th stage fighters wouldn't even see the blade coming. Reaching this level of mastery in a basic technique usually marked you as a top-tier talent in Jiang City. People like Wang Qianjun were at this level. This was the power of my Saber Master talent. But I still had one major weakness, my cultivation level. My physical strength wasn't growing as fast as my skill. Even with all my resources, reaching the 4th stage of body tempering would still take another 2 weeks. I sighed. Most people would call me arrogant for complaining about that speed. It was already elite, but I knew the truth. The martial exam was coming, and for the goals I had, I was still moving too slow. If I wanted to speed up my cultivation, I needed better talent. My current bone structure and innate potential just weren't cutting it. If I could snag a purple grade talent, everything would change. But those were rare. I had only ever seen one on my teacher, Fang Xiong. I still didn't know who Fang Xiong really was. He seemed like a simple teacher, but he was a powerhouse who had traveled beyond Crimson Yellow Planet. Why would a man like that settle down in a backwater place like this? I didn't have the answer. I shook off the thoughts, grabbed my gear, and headed out. It was time to go talent hunting. My first stop was the Jixiong Martial Arts Gym. It was an old-school establishment with a solid reputation. Years ago, they had even produced a student who made it into a top-tier university. As I walked through the doors, a young man with a saber strapped to my back, the receptionist greeted me with a practiced smile. "Looking to sign up for a class, brother? We're running a promotion." "No," I interrupted. "I'm here to challenge your best fighters." With my Thunder Flash Saber technique now at the proficient level, my combat power had skyrocketed. I wasn't worried about losing too badly. The receptionist's face soured. "A challenge? You mean you're here to kick the doors in?" He gave me a long, hard look before turning away. "Wait here." A few minutes later, a dozen muscular students in gym uniforms swarmed me. They didn't look happy. "Kid, you're the one looking for trouble?" A bald student barked, stepping into my personal space. "That's right," I said calmly. I like fighting experts." The crowd erupted in insults. "Arrogant brat. Who do you think you are? Move aside. A challenge has rules." A deep, booming voice cut through the noise. The students parted immediately to let a massive man with thick-rimmed glasses pass through. "I am Ji Wenqing, the master of this gym," he said, eyeing me. "What's your name, and which gym do you represent?" "Lin Yuan. I represent myself," I replied. "I'm here because I enjoy the fight. There's no other motive. And just so you know, Lining and Honkai gyms are my targets for the next 2 days." Those were the big 3 gyms in Jiang City. There was a fourth, Haoying, but they were newcomers. Aside from their top fighter, Hao Shi, they weren't worth my time. Ji Wenqing frowned. "Yourself? You're not from Haoying?" "I have a history with their boss, but he usually sends Hao Shi, not some unknown kid." He stepped closer, his voice dropping an octave. "Do you understand the consequences? People get hurt in these matches. If you break, we aren't responsible." "I know," I said. "Fine. Sign the waiver. Then get on the stage." I didn't hesitate. I signed my name, handed over my blood-silver saber for safekeeping, and picked up a wooden training blade. As I stepped onto the platform, Ji Wenqing glanced at my registration info, body tempering stage 3. He looked relieved. He pointed to a girl in the crowd. "Ku Xian, you're stage 3 as well. Think you can handle him?" Ku Xian nodded confidently. "Don't worry, master. I'll have him down in a minute." She leaped onto the stage with practiced grace. Her weapons were unique, 2 short blades, longer than daggers but shorter than sabers. Using short weapons required extreme confidence and speed. "Begin," Ji Wenqing shouted. Ku Xian stayed low, darting toward me like a blurred shadow. Her speed was impressive for a stage 3. Bam! Before the crowd could even blink, Ku Xian let out a yelp. I had caught her right on the bicep with the flat of my wooden blade, sending her tumbling off the stage. Combat complete. Talent copied. Cap body, white. I felt a sudden wave of flexibility wash over me. My body felt lighter, more agile. Even a white-grade talent provided a noticeable shift. I liked it. I looked at the stunned faces of the Jixiong students. "Next," I said. When nobody moved, I spoke up again. "Like I said, I'm here to fight. Don't worry about matching my rank. Stage 4, 5, 6, even 7. I don't mind." The atmosphere turned cold. Ji Wenqing's expression darkened. To them, I wasn't just challenging them. I was mocking their entire existence. "This kid's saber work is strange," Ji Wenqing muttered. "He's a battle maniac. And Bishing, you're up." And Bishing was a stage 5 fighter. He stepped up and bowed, though his eyes were sharp. "I'm stage 5. Don't blame me for using my rank to protect the gym's honor." "Doesn't matter to me," I said. And Bishing didn't make Ku Xian's mistake. He stayed cautious, but I didn't give him time to breathe. I lunged. Our wooden blades clashed with a sharp crack. Using his superior strength, and Bishing shoved my blade aside and followed up with a smooth horizontal slash toward my gut. With my new cat body talent, I performed a backflip that felt as natural as breathing, narrowly dodging the wood. He didn't stop. He transitioned immediately into the 9-wave saber technique, and he was at the mastery level. But I had fought 9-wave saber before. I knew its rhythm. I saw the gap. As his power built toward the next strike, I thrust my wooden blade straight into the center of his momentum. and Bishing's face went pale. That tiny tap neutralized his entire attack. Thud! I planted a kick squarely in his chest, sending him flying off the stage. The gym went silent. A stage 5 had lost to a stage 3. Ji Wenqing was fuming. He didn't even recognize my style, which meant I was either self-taught or from a lineage he didn't know. What kind of genius skips the martial exam prep to come here and cause trouble? He probably thought. But he couldn't back down now. He looked at a 2-meter-tall giant among the students. Zhang Hanqing, get in there, and make it look good. Zhang Hanqing was a stage 7 powerhouse. He climbed onto the stage like a mountain moving, the floorboards groaning under his weight. I gripped my wooden sword tighter. Lin Yuan. Body tempering stage 3. Chen Wei's smile faded. A 4-stage gap was no joke. The physical difference between a stage 3 and a stage 7 was like comparing a house cat to a tiger. I hadn't managed to copy anything from Bishing, but a powerhouse like Zhang Hanqing had to have something worth stealing. Asterisk whoosh. Whoosh, asterisk. Zhang Hanqing swung a massive long-handled axe. The air howled with every motion. Ready? The instructor called out. Fight! The axe came down like a falling mountain. I stepped forward, aiming my wooden blade at the weakest point of the strike. Usually, this would deflect the blow, but the raw power was too much. The axe barely slowed down. It slammed into my sword with a deafening thud. There was no stalemate. A surge of overwhelming force traveled up my arms, churning my blood and lungs. I was thrown back, my feet skidding across the floor until I hit the very edge of the stage. What insane strength, I thought, my chest heaving. I didn't have the luxury of meeting him head-on. To use a soft technique to redirect a heavy force, you still need a solid foundation of your own. Right now, I was lacking. You actually blocked that? Zhang Hanqing looked surprised, but he didn't stop. He closed the distance in 2 massive strides and raised the axe again. It was the mountain cleaver technique, and he had it at the mastery level. I was backed into a corner. There was nowhere to run and no room to dodge. Boom. A sound like a sudden thunderclap echoed across the gym. Ji Wenqing, who had looked so smug a second ago, suddenly went pale. It was the Thunder Flash Saber. I was using it at the proficient level. In the world of martial arts, proficient might seem only one step below mastery, but the gap was a chasm. At my age, anyone who mastered a technique to this level was a top-tier genius, someone destined for the 5 major universities. In a city like Jiang City, you could count people like that on your fingers. Clang. My wooden sword struck the axe's pressure point again. This time, I didn't fly back. Speed is its own kind of power. At the moment of impact, both the wooden sword and the wooden axe shattered into a cloud of splinters. Zhang Hanqing stood there dazed. He clearly hadn't expected a draw. That's enough. Enough. Ji Wenqing jumped between us, sensing the shift in momentum. The weapons are destroyed. Let's call it a draw. He looked at me, his eyes searching, silently asking if I'd accept that. A draw is fine, I said. I wasn't here to cause trouble. I had already gotten what I came for. I checked my internal panel. A new talent had solidified, sword body, yellow. It increased my tempering efficiency by 10 times. Yellow was a new tier for me. I took a moment to review my entire status. Name, Lin Yuan. Realm, body tempering stage 3. Cultivation, Star Step Pillar, Thunder Flash Saber, proficient. My talents were becoming a long list. I had Persistence, purple, Saber Grandmaster, purple, and First Class Bone, blue. Then there was Chi Fortune, blue, Sword Body, yellow, and Gluttony Factor, green. Below those were several white and gray talents like Cat Body, Elephant Legs, and Steel Mind. I needed 3 blue talents to unlock the next system feature. I was getting close. I realized then why I could hold my own against the stage 7. It wasn't just my saber technique. It was the cumulative effect of all these stacked talents. From what I could tell, the tiers went from gray to white, green, yellow, blue, and then purple. Gray and white were common, but green and yellow started to set you apart from the crowd. Blue was elite. As for purple, if my teacher Feng Xiong was right, only a handful of people on the entire Crimson Yellow planet had them. Those people didn't stay here long. They headed for the stars. Ji Wenqing looked relieved that I wasn't going to push further. Little brother Lin Yuan, about this result. Don't worry, Pavilion Master G, I interrupted. I like fighting experts, but I'm not a loudmouth. This wasn't a challenge to your reputation, just a friendly spar. As long as you don't talk, no one will know. Good, good, he muttered. He couldn't figure out who was backing me, so he was happy to let it go. Over the next 2 days, I hit 2 more gyms, red color and lianing. I walked away with 3 more talents, strong heart, green, bare core, white, and powerful memory, yellow. The first 2 boosted my physical durability, but powerful memory was the real prize. It was just below blue tier. I tested it by reading a few articles. I could memorize 70% after 1 glance and nearly 100% after 2. It even made practicing my saber forms easier. Best of all, I finally broke through to body tempering stage 4. Between my first class bone and sword body, I was tempering my body 40 times faster than a normal person. Add in the gluttony factor, which let me digest high-grade supplements in half a day, and my progress was explosive. The only problem? I was burning through money faster than I could make it. I sighed. I hadn't found another blue talent since copying Chi Fortune. It seemed elite geniuses like Wang Qianjun didn't hang out in public gyms. They had their own family training grounds. If I wanted the good stuff, I had to change my strategy. They say the poor study while the rich practice martial arts. To go far, you need resources. Geniuses need them even more because they burn through them so fast. Most of the famous talents in Jiang City came from wealthy clans. Wang Qianjuan's family owned half the city. Xiaofeng wasn't far behind. Their schedules were private and their locations kept secret. But there were exceptions. I sat on the curb outside Jiang City's 7th high school, ignoring the weird looks from passing students. I scanned every face coming through the gates. Finally, a guy with a buzz cut and a faded uniform appeared. That's him. Zhao Tianyi, I called out, waving him over. He stopped and looked at me, confused. Do I know you? It doesn't matter if you know me, I said, standing up and getting straight to the point. I'm Lin Yuan. I like fighting experts, and I've been waiting here for you. A spar. Zhao Tianyi shook his head immediately. I don't have time for that. He turned to leave immediately. He had a shift as a sparring partner to get to, and he needed the money for cultivation resources. He didn't have a second to waste on a stranger. Don't be in such a rush, I said, stepping in his path to block him. I held up 3 fingers. 30,000 for 1 match. I had done my homework. Zhao Tianyi was a biohuman just like me. He was famous for his outstanding martial talent, but all biohumans shared one thing in common. We were broke. Zhao Tianyi was no exception. He stopped in his tracks. He looked at me, his voice muffled and serious. My time is valuable. 50,000. Take it or leave it. 40,000, I countered. I wasn't made of money either. If it weren't for that blue-grade talent, I wouldn't dream of dropping 40 grand just to get hit. You rich clan kids are something else, Zhao Tianyi muttered, looking confused. You can afford to pay for fights, yet you haggle over 10,000? Are you really that stingy? Rich kid? I wish, I scoffed. I'm a biohuman. Every cent I have was earned with blood and sweat. He didn't believe me until I pulled up my personal ID on my terminal. Once he saw the status, his jaw practically dropped. Are you out of your mind? You're struggling for cash and you're paying to get beaten up? Shut up and fight, I snapped. I was losing my patience. I only needed 1 more blue talent to unlock the next panel function. I couldn't wait any longer. Fine, let's go. We headed straight to the martial arts hall at 7th High. The place was packed with students, but the moment they saw Zhao Tianyi, they cleared the ring. In this world, strength was everything. Even a biohuman could earn respect if his fists were hard enough. Zhao Tianyi drew a long sword, his expression radiating confidence. He had earned it. Being the class monitor at a top school while being a biohuman was a feat very few could achieve. Come at me when you're ready, he said. I didn't waste breath. I stepped forward, blade in hand. Boom! A sound like thunder erupted as I unleashed my thunderbolt blade at the mastery level. The noise was so loud that other students stopped their own training just to stare. Mastery level? Who is this guy? Someone whispered. I didn't hold back. I went all in from the start. But Zhao Tianyi wasn't some random gym rat. He was a top-tier genius, currently at the 8th stage of body tempering with mastery-level sword techniques. Our blades clashed. The impact felt like a mountain hitting me. I was sent flying backward, nearly tumbling off the stage. If it weren't for my talent buffs, the first exchange would have finished me. My heart raced. Even Zhang Hanxin from the gym hadn't put this much pressure on me. I couldn't see a single opening. This was the true gap between a regular talent and a top-tier one. Nice blade work, Zhao Tianyi said, frowning. But you're only at the 4th stage. Fighting me is a waste of your money. You won't learn anything when the power gap is this huge. Again, I shouted. I charged back in, pushing my Blade Master talent to the absolute limit. It didn't matter. The difference in realms was too great. Even when I spotted a flaw, I wasn't fast enough to exploit it. It was a total suppression of strength. In less than 30 seconds, his blade forced me off the edge of the ring. It was a clean, effortless loss. But I wasn't upset. I was grinning like a madman. Battle complete. Talent copied. Acquired. Sword Scholar, Blue. Sword Scholar. Increases sword comprehension by 30 times compared to a normal person. I finally had my 3rd blue talent. I started laughing out loud, unable to contain the joy. To the onlookers, I looked insane. I had just lost a fortune and a fight, yet I was celebrating like I'd won the lottery. I guess you weren't lying, Zhao Tianyi said, sheathing his sword. You really do love fighting experts. He clearly thought I was a martial arts nut. Only a fanatic could lose that badly and still be that happy. I didn't correct him. Thanks for the match, I said, still smiling. It was a transaction. No need for thanks. He shook his head. He'd never met a freak like me before. I transferred the 40,000 credits immediately. But as I turned to leave, my terminal pinged. Zhao Tianyi had sent 30,000 back. Biohumans have it hard enough, he said, waving me off. I'll just take 10 for my time. Keep the rest for supplements. Your talent isn't bad, but your level is too low. Don't fall behind. I smiled. I appreciated the gesture. Thanks. I owe you one. I walked away, heading straight back to my room. I sat cross-legged on my bed and pulled up my status panel. Name, Lin Yuan. Realm, Body Tempering Stage 4. Talents, Blade Master, Purple, First Class Bone, Blue, Chi Fortune, Blue, Sword Scholar, Blue. Asterisk condition met. Expansion function available. Enable, asterisk. My hands were shaking with excitement. Yes. A new notification appeared. Function unlocked. Talent smelting. I studied the description. It was simple but powerful. I could consume lower-grade talents to upgrade a specific target talent. This was exactly what I needed. Most of my gray and white talents were becoming useless as I got stronger. Now, they were fuel. Consume Iron Skin, Gray, to smelt First-Class Bone, Blue. I gave the command. The Iron Skin talent vanished from my list. Smelting progress, 0.1%. One gray talent barely moved the needle. I didn't mind. I had been hoarding junk talents for weeks. Bear Strength, white. Sword Aptitude, white. Cat Reflexes, white. Elephant Leg, white. Strong Kidney, white. I looked at the list. These basic physical buffs were nothing compared to my elite talents. I didn't feel a shred of regret. Sacrifice them all, I whispered. I sacrificed every white talent I had. One by one, they vanished into the system. The progress bar for my first-class bone talent began to crawl upward. 10%, 15%. I didn't stop. I fed it my strong heart talent, then my green-grade swordsmanship talent. Finally, I threw in my blue-grade sword body and my yellow-grade trivial instinct. The bar didn't just crawl anymore. It surged. In a matter of seconds, it hit 100%. A notification flashed in my vision. The smelting was complete. My first-class bone had evolved into a cyan-grade talent, 5-path first-class bone. I checked the stats and nearly fell off my bed. My cultivation speed was now 80 times faster than a normal person. Even better, I would face zero bottlenecks until I reached the blood exchange realm. I realized then that there was a hidden tier between blue and purple. Based on what I was seeing, the hierarchy went gray, white, green, yellow, blue, cyan, and finally purple. Blue was rare, but cyan was legendary, something you'd only see in the top geniuses of an entire nation. As for purple, a regular planet might not produce a single person with a purple talent in a century. And I had 2 of them. My mood sword. The massive sacrifice of my lower talents had been worth it. The speed was great, but the lack of bottlenecks was terrifying. Most martial artists spent their entire lives stuck at a single wall, unable to progress. I didn't have that problem anymore. I pulled up my updated status. Name, Lin Yuan, Realm, Body Tempering Stage 4, Talents, Blade Master, Purple, 5-Path First Class Bone, Cyan, Chief Fortune, Blue, Grandmaster Technique, Yellow. The list was much cleaner now. I had burned away the junk. But then I noticed a new requirement for the next system expansion. To unlock the next function, I needed to copy 3 Cyan grade talents. I sighed. This was going to be a problem. A talent of that level wasn't something you found walking down the street in a backwater place like Jiang City. I needed to find the best of the best. In the Crimson Yellow Planet, there were 68 martial arts universities, but only 3 were considered the peak. The top 3 in the capital, Shangjiang, and Huaying. They represented the heights of politics, commerce, and technology. If I wanted Cyan talents, those schools were my only hope. The clash of stars was still far away, but the martial exam was right around the corner. It was my first stepping stone. I couldn't waste a second. I downed a bottle of high-grade body tempering solution and began practicing my star-treading stake forms. With my new talent, the medicine was absorbed in just 3 hours, twice as fast as before. My efficiency wasn't just 80 times higher. With enough resources, I was moving 100 times faster than anyone else. The only problem was the cost. At this rate, I'd need 3 bottles a day. That was 15,000 credits daily. My savings wouldn't last a week. The next morning, I went to the martial arts class at Jiang City No. 2 High School. "Where have you been, kid?" Fang Xiong asked, looking me over. I'd been skipping class to hunt for talents at local gyms. "You're an adult, Lin Yuan. You need to take responsibility for your future." "I've been busy, teacher," I said with a grin. "About that job you mentioned? The one with the wealthy families." Fang Xiong blinked. "I told you, those rich businessmen aren't fools. They want masters. To get paid well, you need to have mastered the Thunderbolt blade. Otherwise, you're stuck at a training center making 500 credits a class. It's a waste of time." I didn't say a word. I simply moved my hand through the air like a blade. CR crack. A faint sound of thunder echoed in the quiet room. Fang Xiong's eyes went wide. "Thunderclap on strike. You reached mastery?" He stepped closer, his expression shifting from shock to disbelief. "And you've broken through to stage 4? It's only been 10 days. I told you. I'm a late bloomer," I joked. I was desperate for cash. To keep up this pace, I needed money. Lots of it. Fang Xiong circled me twice, muttering to himself. "Different. You're completely different. That blade talent, it's almost on my level. If you had more resources, you might actually hit stage 7 before the exam." "That's the plan," I said. "Fine." Fang Xiong nodded, his face turning serious. "You've met my standard. I'll show you the way. Don't leave after school. I'm taking you somewhere." Meanwhile, in the shadows of a dim bar across town, a group of well-dressed men and women gathered in a private booth. "It's confirmed," a long-haired woman named Yi Xiao said. Her voice was cold. "Another believer has been exposed and eliminated." The others sighed. "A shame. He just finished the initiation. How did he get caught so fast?" Yi Xiao's expression turned strange. I checked the records. Apparently, he was caught because a student named Lin Yuan got suspicious of him. "Suspicious?" one of the men asked, confused. "That's it. We've kept our identities hidden for years. How could a random student see through us?" The room went quiet. They didn't know who I was yet, but I had officially landed on their radar. But there was no evidence. Who would believe a regular student anyway? In that dim bar, the conversation continued. One of the men wondered if my victim, Chen Yu, had some secret connection to a powerful family in Jiang City. They always warned their new recruits to stay away from the elites. Those families had powerful experts backing them, warriors with senses so sharp they could smell a lie from a mile away. Plus, the elites were backed by the high society on the new moon. That was the real problem. "Chen Yu was just a biohuman," Yi Xiao said, her voice wavering. The room went silent. They couldn't believe it. A low-status biohuman had sniffed out one of their own? On Crimson Yellow Planet, biohumans were at the bottom of the food chain. They were supposed to be the ones easily swayed by the faith of the evil gods, not the ones hunting believers down. Without evidence, what could a biohuman even do? Someone asked. Yi Xiao looked at them with a strange expression. You won't believe it. He didn't have proof. He just suspected the recruit's identity, claimed he was scared, and then showed up at the door with a blade and killed him. He killed him because he was scared? The man scoffed. That makes no sense. I thought so too, Yi Xiao nodded. But I looked into this kid. It turns out he's a martial arts nut. A complete fanatic. The tension in the room eased. That explained it. To them, a martial arts fanatic was basically a mental patient. They didn't follow logic. If I was crazy, then my erratic behavior wasn't a threat to their grand plan. It was just a fluke. He's just a rookie, Yi Xiao reminded them. Don't let him distract us from the main goal. Stay quiet for now. When the plan starts, we can kill him easily. It won't take much effort. The group nodded in agreement. Just then, a blond guy with a cocky grin walked over. He looked Yi Xiao up and down, his eyes lingering on her curves. Hey beautiful, he said. How about you and your friends come have a drink with me and my boys? The atmosphere in the booth turned weirdly playful. Yi Xiao giggled, covering her mouth. I don't mind, handsome. But I might not be enough for all of you. Why don't my sisters and I join you? We'll drink until we drop. The blond guy's eyes lit up. He led Yi Xiao and two others away, thinking he'd hit the jackpot. The remaining cultists watched them leave with twisted smiles before slipping out into the night. Meanwhile, Feng Xiong was a man of his word. After school, he waved me over to his car. We sped toward the center of Jiang City. Can you tell me more about this tutoring gig? I asked from the passenger seat. You're a sparring partner, but also half a teacher, Feng Xiong explained. You'll teach blade techniques and combat. It's one session every 3 days. You'll have to negotiate the pay yourself. Don't be nervous. The employer is currently on the new moon. You'll be teaching his illegitimate son and dealing with the butler. The new moon. My heart skipped a beat. That was where the real power lived. Centuries ago, the elites moved there to escape the grit of our planet. They controlled the politics and the money from above. If you want to join the Clash of Stars, the new moon is a hurdle you have to clear, Feng Xiong said, smiling. He still didn't think I had a real shot at the galactic stage, but he respected my blade skills. The technology on our planet is locked down by those elites. To leave this place, you have to go through them. The new moon is the gateway to the stars. We arrived at Chuntian Mansion, a luxury estate for the ultra-rich. The security was intense. Even with Feng Xiong, we passed through 3 separate checkpoints. Jiang City isn't safe lately, Feng Xiong told me. There are cultists hiding everywhere. The first check is always the hardest. Once the butler records your info, it'll be easier. I nodded. I understood. In a world full of martial arts lunatics, cults, and space pirates, I'd want 10 times the security if I were rich. We stopped in front of a massive villa. An older man with silver hair stood at the entrance. He was dressed in a crisp suit, his posture perfectly straight. Mr. Fong, I've been expecting you, the butler said. No need for formalities, old Qin, Feng Xiong replied. He gestured to me. This is my student, Lin Yuan. His talent with a blade is equal to mine. He'll meet your requirements. Old Qin's eyes flickered with surprise. He knew Feng Xiong was a once-in-3 centuries genius. To hear him praise a student like this was unheard of. Mr. Lin, Mr. Fong, please follow me, Old Qin said respectfully. Just call me Lin Yuan, I said, feeling a bit awkward with the formal title. As we stepped inside, a young, scrawny boy blocked our path. He looked anxious. Teacher? Which one is my teacher? Old Qin sighed softly and pointed at me. Young Master Luo Ming, this is your new blade instructor. Luo Ming looked me up and down. His face soured. Him? He's only at stage 4. I'm already at stage 3. How is he supposed to teach me? How am I supposed to beat Wang Tianqing with a teacher like this? Wang Tianqing's teacher is a famous genius. The kid was throwing a tantrum, but I didn't mind. I actually felt relieved. I preferred a kid who was frustrated because he wanted to win over a spoiled brat who didn't want to work at all. Being strong doesn't mean you're a good teacher, I said calmly. Luo Ming rolled his eyes. I've never heard of a weakling raising a champion. My dad has plenty of money. Why couldn't he find me a real genius? If Wang Tianqing finds out my teacher is only stage 4, I'll never hear the end of it. This Wang Tianqing, I asked, curious. What stage is he? Stage 3, just like me, Luo Ming snapped. but his sword teacher is incredible. My blade skills can't keep up with him. I've lost more times than I can count, Luo Ming sighed. He looked down at the floor, his face twisted with frustration and a deep sense of unwilling defeat. I couldn't help but smile. That's it. That makes things simple, then. Do you want to win or not? If you listen to me, you'll win next time, guaranteed. I held out my hand. Do you have any videos of your fights? Send me one. I'll show you exactly how to beat him. Luo Ming looked at me with pure skepticism. He wasn't sure if I was a genius or a fraud, but he didn't have many options. He had plenty of footage. He spent hours studying his losses, trying to find a way through, but he never could. That's why his family was looking for a blade instructor in the first place. While we talked, Fang Xiong and Old Qin stepped away to give us some space. This was my audition. If I couldn't get this kid to believe in me, the job was gone before it even started. Mr. Fang, the master asked me to remind you of something, Old Qin said softly as they walked. Jiangsheng might get a little restless soon. He hopes you won't get involved. After all, your situation. Fang Xiong waved him off before he could finish. Don't worry. I'm not on the payroll of the Jiangsheng Law Enforcement Bureau. Whatever happens has nothing to do with me. Old Qin smiled. The master knew you'd say that. He also mentioned that it's been years since you two met. If you have time, you should visit. Xinhua is still part of Crimson Yellow Planet, so you don't need to worry about overstepping any boundaries. A look of melancholy washed over Fang Xiong's face. It's been almost 30 years, hasn't it? Fine. I'll make time. He glanced back at me to make sure things were going smoothly. Before leaving, he leaned in toward Old Qin. That student of mine, he's a biohuman. His talent is great, but he's desperate for resources. If you can, push his pay a little higher. With his skill, he's worth every cent. Old Qin looked surprised. Fang Xiong was famous for never asking anyone for favors. To see him stick his neck out for a student meant I was something special. He nodded respectfully. Since you've said it, Mr. Fang, it won't be an issue. With that, Fang Xiong left. Back in the training room, I finished watching the video Luo Ming sent me. I raised an eyebrow. Wow, this Wang Tianxing definitely has a high-level master backing him. He's reading you like an open book. No wonder you lose every time. Luo Ming snapped, his face turning red. Stop talking trash. You said you'd teach me how to win. If I lose again, don't bother coming back. I'll find a real teacher. I wanted to keep teasing him, but I needed his trust first. I straightened my back and looked him in the eye. Stop wasting your time looking. In all of Jiangsheng, I am the top talent when it comes to the blade. Those famous prodigies are nothing but jokes to me. They're just lucky I wasn't born in their era. Luo Ming stared at me. He couldn't understand how a stage 4 student had the ego of a world champion. Listen up, I said, cutting him off. Follow my lead. If you don't win, I'll give you a full refund. I started breaking down the fight. I had already seen through Wang Tianxing's sword style. When he lunges with this straight thrust, don't dodge away. Close the gap immediately. Get inside his reach and hit him with a horizontal slash. He'll try to retreat, but his footwork is unstable. That's when you strike his lower body. I laid out the entire counter strategy, predicting exactly how his rival would react to every move. Will this actually work? Luo Ming hesitated. But then he thought about Wang Tianxing's smug face after every victory, and his doubt turned into resolve. Fine. I'll trust you once. The first lesson wasn't just about counters. I began teaching him the core of the thunderclap blade. We spent hours with wooden swords. No matter how hard the kid swung or how fast he moved, he couldn't even touch my clothes. Eventually, we sat down to rest. The essence of the thunderclap blade is speed. Pure, lightning-fast speed, I explained, correcting his grip. Suddenly, I froze. Keep going? Luo Ming prompted, hanging on my every word. I didn't answer because a notification flashed across my vision. Combat completed. Talent copied successfully. Copied talent. Keen perception, blue. Effect, enhance combat intuition. Instinctively perceive the power level of opponents at the same stage. I was stunned. I just came here to teach a lesson and I walked away with a blue-grade talent? What a windfall. Then again, Luo Ming was the son of the Xinhua elite. It made sense his genetics were top tier. I snapped back to reality and finished the lesson. With my Blade Grandmaster talent, Teaching a kid was effortless. I have to admit, Luo Ming muttered as I prepared to leave, looking a bit embarrassed. Your stage might be average, but your teaching is actually really good. He could feel the difference. In just one session, his understanding of the thunderclap blade had leaped forward. Just fight the way I told you, I said with a wave. If you can't beat him, I won't show my face here again. I vanished out the door. Uncle Chin, Luo Ming said, sounding worried. Did I say something wrong? I was trying to give him an out, but he just doubled down. What if he really doesn't come back? Old Chin chuckled. You said enough, young master. But he's Mr. Fong's student. That confidence. It reminds me exactly of how Mr. Fong was when he was young. Meanwhile, I checked my bank balance on my wrist terminal. My heart nearly stopped. 50,000 credits. 50,000. That was enough to support a normal family of 3 for an entire year in Jiangcheng, and I had earned it in a few hours. Fong Xiong was right. Once you master a skill, the money follows. This was how a martial arts genius was supposed to live. With this income, I wouldn't have to worry about resources anymore. I could focus entirely on the upcoming exams. We had agreed on one lesson every 3 days, so it wouldn't interfere with my own training. It was the perfect balance. While I was celebrating, Luo Ming couldn't wait any longer. He ran 2 houses down to a neighboring luxury villa and pounded on the gate. Wang Tianxing, get out here and take your beating, he roared. A moment later, the gate slid open. A boy with short hair stepped out, carrying a sword. He looked at Luo Ming with pure boredom. Luo Ming, are you looking for another bruise? Because I'm happy to give you one. Luo Ming grinned. We'll see who's crying today. That remains to be seen, Luo Ming snapped. He didn't waste any more words. He swung his wooden blade straight at Wang Tianxing's head. Wang Tianxing didn't dare to be careless. Their cultivation levels were nearly identical, and one mistake would mean defeat. He tried to recall the techniques his elite sword instructor had taught him, preparing to parry and counter just like he had in their previous fights. But this time, he miscalculated. Luo Ming moved like he was reading Wang Tianxing's mind. He predicted every single step, every shift in weight, and every strike. It only took 6 moves. Luo Ming flicked his wrist, sending Wang Tianxing's wooden sword flying through the air. Before the other boy could react, Luo Ming planted a heavy kick into his chest. Wang Tianxing flew back 3 meters, hitting the ground hard. It took him a long time just to scramble back to his feet, gasping for air. How? Wang Tianxing stammered, his face pale. How are you this strong? They had been neighbors since they were kids. They knew everything about each other. Their talent levels were almost exactly the same. There was no logical reason for Luo Ming to suddenly become a monster on the battlefield. Haha, you can hire a sword master, but I can't hire a blade master. Luo Ming stood there, hands on his hips, looking refreshed. He felt incredible. I had been right. By following the counter moves I taught him, beating Wang Tianxing was as easy as breathing. I see, Wang Tianxing muttered, realization dawning on him. He clutched his stomach and started limping back toward his villa. Over his shoulder, he shouted, This time doesn't count. I wasn't prepared. Just you wait until my teacher gets here. I'll be back for your head. Luo Ming watched him flee like a beaten dog and let out a roar of laughter. I'll be waiting. He walked back into his own house with a swagger in his step. He knew he had won today because of the information gap. I had given him the exact keys to unlock Wang Tianxing's defense. He also knew Wang Tianxing would go crying to his teacher to learn new tricks. If Luo Ming didn't keep improving, he'd lose the next round. He has a teacher, but I have one too, Luo Ming muttered to himself. He remembered I had claimed to be the #1 blade talent in Jiangxing. That thought alone gave him all the confidence he needed. Meanwhile, my life became a blur of repetition. It was monotonous, but my cultivation was soaring. Every day brought a massive change. My first-class bone talent was a green quality innate gift, and it gave me a cultivation speed 80 times faster than a normal person. More importantly, there were no bottlenecks in the body tempering realm. As long as I accumulated enough energy, breaking through was as natural as water flowing downstream. It had only been 10 days since my last breakthrough. I sat in my small room, feeling the surge of power. I had reached the 5th level of body tempering. 5th level already, I whispered, feeling the strength in my limbs. That was fast. At this rate, Even geniuses like Wang Qianjun couldn't hope to keep up with me. The only downside was my lack of progress with my other talents. My Blade Master talent was a rare purple quality, nearly impossible to find in the wild. I wondered what would happen if I could evolve it further. But evolving talents required fuel. I needed to copy and merge a massive amount of other talents to push the quality higher. Moving from blue to green had already cost me a fortune in copied skills. Pushing a green talent to purple, or purple to something even higher, seemed like an impossible mountain to climb. Jiangxing was just too small. The best it had to offer were ordinary geniuses like Wang Qianjun. They weren't enough for me anymore. I found myself thinking about the clash of stars again. A gala for the entire human race across tens of thousands of planets. Millions of geniuses. If I could get there, I could copy rare talents until I was a god. Purple talents, or even those beyond purple, would be mine for the taking. A few days later, I was back in the martial arts hall. My blood-silver blade clashed against Wang Qianjun's black spear, sending a shower of sparks into the air. Wang Qianjun retreated several steps, his expression turning serious. 5th level? You've really had an awakening, haven't you? He looked at me like I was a ghost. It hadn't been long since our last spar, and I had jumped from the 2nd level to the 5th. It was unheard of. Wang Qianjun knew he was talented, but even he wasn't this much of a freak. Teacher Fong says I'm just a late bloomer, I said, sheathing my blade. That was my standard excuse for everything now. A late bloomer? Wang Qianjun shook his head, a rare smile tugging at his lips. Honestly, with that speed, I was starting to wonder if you'd joined a cult like Xiao Feng. He was joking, but the room turned cold for a second. Everyone knew that making a deal with an outer god could make your power skyrocket, but it always came with a terrible price. Don't even joke about that, I said, waving my hand dismissively. I wanted nothing to do with that kind of trouble. Fair enough, Wang Qianjun said, shifting gears. With the potential you're showing now, you might actually be eligible for the 5-exam warm-up next month. The 5-exam warm-up? I asked. I'd never heard of it. Wang Qianjun paused, then remembered. Right, you were a biohuman student with average talent before. It makes sense you wouldn't know. It's a tournament held 1 month before the final university exams. It's a bit secretive, but scouts from the 5 major universities always attend to scout talent early. Word is, even the top 3 elite academies might send people this year. If you perform well, they might sign you on the spot. You wouldn't even have to wait for the final exams. When he mentioned the top 3, even a guy as calm as Wang Qianjun couldn't hide the longing in his eyes. Those schools were the peak of Crimson Yellow Planet. Graduates from there had limitless futures. Some even got to leave the planet and head for the capital world, New Moon. But my mind was somewhere else entirely. So, I said, my heart racing. This warm-up tournament, it gathers every single martial arts genius in Jiangxing? Wang Qianjun blinked, looking confused. That's what you're focused on? I just told you the top 3 academies might recruit you, and all you care about is fighting more people. He stared at me for a long moment. You really are a martial arts maniac, aren't you? I didn't wait. As soon as I left Wang Qianjun, I hunted down Fong Xiong. Teacher Fong, I want to enter the 5-exam warm-up next month, I told him bluntly. Fong Xiong looked startled, then he rubbed his chin. Your cultivation speed has been impressive. If you can hit the 6th level by next month, you'll have the qualifications to enter. But I have to warn you, 6th level is the bare minimum. Most of the geniuses there will be at the 8th level, and many will have mastered high-level combat techniques. You might not get the results you're hoping for. That doesn't matter, I said quickly. I don't care about losing. I just want to fight geniuses. I need to see where I'm lacking. I didn't care about my reputation. I cared about copying talents. What was a little embarrassment compared to a new set of high-tier abilities? Fine. Fong Xiong sighed, shaking his head. If you love fighting that much, I won't stop you. But keep your head on a swivel. His voice dropped an octave, becoming uncharacteristically grave. Things might be getting dangerous around here lately. Be careful lately, Fong Xiong warned, his voice dropping to a low murmur. The evil god cultists have been active in the shadows. You killed Xiao Feng, and no one knows if those fanatics will retaliate against you. The term evil god cultists made my skin crawl. These people were true lunatics. I nodded solemnly, my hand instinctively drifting to the blood-silver blade at my waist. Part of me wondered if they would actually come for me. If they did, would it be a disaster or an opportunity? After all, cultists had talents I could copy too. Later that day, I headed to my private tutoring session with my student, Luo Ming. "Teacher," Luo Ming shouted, his face flushed with excitement. "I used the moves you taught me. Wang Tianxing is a total loser now. He's definitely going to run back to his own teacher to learn new tricks. What should I do?" I listened quietly, not surprised at all. My saber talent came from Feng Xiong himself, a purple-grade talent that was rare even on the entire crimson-yellow planet. In a small place like Jiangcheng, no one could match me in pure martial arts insight. "Don't worry," I said with a faint smile. I already anticipated his teacher's response. I'm predicting his prediction. I began to simulate the moves of this mysterious teacher I had never met, visualizing how they would try to break Luo Ming's rhythm. "This time, I'll teach you 3 different counter strategies. Switch between them depending on how he reacts." 3 sets. That's amazing. Luo Ming was vibrating with energy. He couldn't wait to see the look of frustration on Wang Tianxing's face. He focused intensely, memorizing every detail of the 3 patterns I laid out. Once that was done, I started the formal lesson. I pushed him hard on the thunderclap blade technique. He was currently at this small success stage, but I wanted him at great success before the martial exam. I had to earn my paycheck, and luckily, Luo Ming's talent wasn't bad, at least blue grade. 3 hours flew by. Just as I was packing up to leave, a high-pitched voice drifted in from outside the villa. "Luo Ming, come out and get beaten." "Wang Tianxing," Luo Ming growled. He turned to me, eyes pleading. "Teacher, don't leave yet. Watch me crush him with your new moves." Curious, I walked to the window. A short-haired boy was standing at the gate, shouting provocations. Luo Ming marched out to meet him. They stared each other down for a heartbeat before exploding into motion. As soon as they clashed, I noticed something. "That sword style. He really did learn new techniques," I muttered. And it looks like he tried to predict my prediction. Wang Tianxing's teacher had clearly expected me to counter the previous moves, so he had added another layer of complexity. Unfortunately for him, he was only playing on the 2nd level. I was on the 3rd. I watched as Luo Ming realized his first counter wasn't working. Without missing a beat, he shifted to the 2nd set I taught him. He didn't even need the 3rd. With a decisive strike, he sent Wang Tianxing sprawling into the dirt. "You're too weak," Luo Ming crowed, standing over his rival. How is this possible?" Wang Tianxing looked devastated. His teacher had promised him this would work. A man quickly stepped forward to help the boy up. It was Zhao Tianyi. "Teacher, I lost again," Wang Tianxing whispered, looking ashamed. Zhao Tianyi sighed, looking equally baffled. "It's okay. I was careless. I'll teach you something better next time." He had predicted the counter, but he hadn't expected his opponent to see through that too. Up at the window, my heart skipped a beat. The teacher is him? I walked downstairs and called out, "Zhao Tianyi?" Zhao Tianyi spun around, his jaw dropping. He looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. In Jiangcheng, biohumans who practiced martial arts were rare, and martial maniacs, like me, were even rarer. "You're Luo Ming's saber teacher?" he asked, recovering quickly. "And you're Wang Tianxing's sword teacher," I countered. I hadn't expected to find a top genius like him moonlighting as a tutor for extra resources, just like me. I guess it's a small world. I was wondering what kind of expert was backing Luo Ming, Zhao Tianyi said, rubbing his nose. I never guessed it would be the famous Lin Yuan. He knew I was talented, but he clearly thought my low cultivation level would keep me from competing for the top 3 universities. We chatted for a bit, but we weren't exactly friends yet. Just as I turned to leave, Wang Tianxing nudged Luo Ming and whispered something. Luo Ming's eyes lit up. He ran over and blocked my path. "Teacher, I want to go somewhere fun. Do you want to come with us?" "Somewhere fun?" I frowned. My first instinct was to say no. I needed to train. "Tell me what it is first." Luo Ming leaned in and whispered, "The underground black market fights." I froze. I'd heard rumors about these illegal pits where fighters risked their lives for quick cash. I shook my head immediately. "No way. It's too dangerous. If something happens to you, I'm responsible." "Uncle Qin is coming too," Luo Ming argued. "He's a high-level martial artist. He just has to stay in the shadows because of his job. Plus, I have a black gold membership. The security is top-notch. I just need you to be there with me. Zhao Tianyi chimed in. Relax. Those pits stay open because they're professional. I've been a few times. It's fine. He looked at me with a knowing smirk. Besides, don't you love fighting? You could even sign up for a match yourself. I hesitated. The idea of seeing the underground black market was tempting. But the idea of fighting? If I could get in the ring with a few unknown experts, I could copy talents no one else in the school system had. Even if I didn't win, the potential gains were massive. Beyond the thrill of combat, I had another motive. I could copy common talents from these fighters to use as disposable fuel for my system. I looked at the group and made my decision. Ask Uncle Qin, I said to Luo Ming. If he's okay with it, I'll go with you. Luo Ming didn't wait a second. He pumped his fist at Wang Tianxing, his face lighting up with excitement. The two of them had been dying to visit the black market for ages, but Luo Ming's family restrictions always stood in the way. He dashed into the villa and returned moments later with Uncle Qin's approval. Soon, an inconspicuous black SUV pulled out of the garage with Uncle Qin behind the wheel. Wang Tianxing scrambled into the front seat, acting like he owned the place. Move, 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 he shouted. Luo Ming waved me into the back seat, his expression frantic with anticipation. You'd think an illegal underground ring would be tucked away in some rotting suburb on the edge of Crimson Yellow Planet. It was the opposite. The underground black market was located right inside a massive skyscraper in the heart of the city. To the elites of Jiangxing, there wasn't much difference between a biohuman and a natural human. They were all just entertainment. When we arrived, Uncle Qin stayed with the car. He gave me a sharp, serious look. Keep an eye on Luo Ming, he warned. I gave a dismissive shrug. To the people from the New Moon, these local big shots are all the same. I didn't care about the social divide or the city's power players. My eyes were on the clash of stars. In a universe where martial powerhouses could shatter planets and walk through the void, strength was the only rule. Everything else was noise. After passing through several security checkpoints, we stepped into the arena. The noise hit me like a physical wall. Kill him. Break his legs. I put everything on you, you bastard. Move. A bald man was screaming, his spit flying onto the neck of the person in front of him. A skinny guy nearby was jumping up and down, looking like he wanted to jump into the cage himself. 500 or 600 people were packed around a central iron cage, forming a literal wall of sweating, shouting flesh. Their faces looked distorted and manic under the flickering spotlights. Thankfully, Luo Ming and Wang Tianxing had status. We didn't have to squeeze into the crowd. A staff member led us to a private balcony on the second floor, giving us a perfect view of the carnage below. Luo Ming pulled out a tablet showing the odds for the next few matches. Teacher, want to place a bet? I don't gamble, I said, waving him off. I didn't know the fighters, and I knew these matches were often rigged from behind the scenes. Luo Ming and Wang Tianxing didn't mind. They threw down a few hundred credits just for the thrill. Zhao Tianyi nudged me and pulled me aside. Lin Yuan, let me ask you something, he whispered. How much is he paying you per lesson? I held up 5 fingers. Zhao Tianyi's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Wait, 50,000. Are you serious? Is that not the standard? I asked. I'd assumed 50,000 was the going rate for private tutoring. Zhao Tianyi scratched his head, looking offended. No way. 2,000 is the ceiling. I'm a genius. My teaching is top tier, and I only get 2,000. How the hell are you pulling 50? I realized then that Feng Xiong must have pulled some serious strings for me. Teacher, Luo Ming interrupted, looking over from his conversation with Wang Tianxing. You said you like fighting. Want me to set up a match for you? I raised an eyebrow. Aren't these matches scheduled in advance? Can I just jump in? With a black gold membership? Absolutely, Zhao Tianyi laughed. Wang Tianxing lost a fortune last time, so I went down to win some of it back. But these guys are just street brawlers. Their talent is mediocre. I won one match, and the organizers told me to stop, so I wouldn't ruin the betting pool. I nodded. It made sense. Anyone with real talent would join the military or aim for the top 5 universities. They wouldn't be bleeding in a cage for scraps. Still, I was already here. Arrange one for me, I said. I transferred 10,000 credits to Zhao Tianyi to handle the fees. He gave me a thumbs up. Down in the cage, 2 fighters were finishing their bout. Both were covered in blood. One man collapsed, and the crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and furious curses. Behind the scenes, in a darkened control room, a notification popped up on a monitor. A fighter using the alias Madman had requested a slot. "Hey, we've got a black gold member wanting to skip the line," a man with a headset called out. A man named Yahello leaned back, a creepy grin spreading across his face. "Another one? We're lucky today. 10 black gold members and 3 diamonds in the building. Send me his info. Let's use this as a warm-up for the main plan." As the data flashed onto his screen, Yahello froze. He stared at the face on the monitor and started to laugh, a wide, jagged smile that reached his ears. "It's him? Talk about a double blessing. Give him a good opponent. He'll be our first sacrifice." Back at the cage, I handed my blood-silver blade to Zhao Tianyi. Weapons weren't allowed. I had to rely on my fists. Luckily, my Thunder Strike blade technique was at the proficient level. The essence of the style was speed. Whether I used a blade or my bare hands, the principle was the same. I stepped into the cage. The crowd hissed and booed. To them, I just looked like a skinny student who had lost his way. From the other side, my opponent emerged. He was a 2-meter-tall mountain of a man. I activated my keen perception talent. A blue light flickered in my vision. Body tempering level 6. I frowned. I had listed myself as level 5. They must have seen Zhao Tianyi fight earlier and assumed I was another genius looking for a thrill, so they picked someone stronger to keep the betting interesting. Level 6, huh? I looked at the man, who went by the name Mad Slaughter. A smile tugged at my lips. He had to have at least a green-gray talent. I hadn't copied anything in days, and it was time to break that streak. Clang. The cage door locked. The fight was on. Mad Slaughter roared, charging at me with his fingers hooked like claws. He swung for my head, the wind whistling past his grip. His intent was obvious, his technique sloppy. At most, he had basic mastery of his skills. I didn't even need to blink. I saw right through Mad Slaughter's movements. As he lunged, I stepped to the side, my body moving with a fluid ease he couldn't match. I drove my knee upward, slamming it directly into his abdomen. A dull thud echoed through the cage. Mad Slaughter instantly doubled over like a shrimp, his eyes bulging as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. That should be enough, I thought. I held back, refusing to follow up with another strike. To me, these underground fighters were just ordinary people trying to scrape together a living. I didn't want to kill him if I didn't have to. Besides, he had to realize the massive gap in our strength by now. If he was smart, he'd just forfeit. I wasn't the only one thinking it. The boos from the crowd died down instantly. Anyone with eyes could see I was crushing him. I was a different breed of fighter, a genius compared to this brute. "Damn it, which young master is this now?" someone yelled. "We had one last month, and now another? Don't you rich kids have anything better to do? Where's the boss? You're cheating us. I want a refund. Get out of here. This cage isn't for you pampered brats to show off." The crowd turned toxic. They didn't care about the skill, they cared about their bets. To them, I was just a rich kid ruining their payday. The atmosphere turned ugly fast. But then, movement caught my eye. Mad Slaughter suddenly swung a fist at my head. His speed was significantly faster than before. The shouting crowd went silent. He hadn't given up. He clearly hadn't realized how outmatched he was. I retreated several steps, narrowly dodging the blow. I stared at him, surprised. He had taken a direct hit to the vitals, and still had the strength to fight? Worse, he wasn't just fighting, he was trying to kill me. If that punch had landed, my skull would have shattered. My eyes narrowed. If he wanted a life-and-death struggle, I would give him one. Mad Slaughter let out a mindless roar and pounced. I didn't hold back this time. I planted my feet, twisted my waist, and threw a punch in one seamless motion. Boom. A sound like a thunderclap erupted. I used the explosive force of the Thunder Strike blade technique through my fist. It was as fast as a lightning bolt, landing squarely on Mad Slaughter's face. His massive frame was lifted off the ground and sent flying into the iron bars of the cage. His face caved in, blood leaking from every orifice. It was a gruesome sight. The audience fell deathly silent again. He wasn't getting up from that. "It's over," I exhaled, turning to leave the cage. But the door didn't open. The staff members who were supposed to be there had vanished. I looked back and felt a chill crawl up my spine. Mad Slaughter, who should have been a corpse, was swaying on his feet, rising again. His mouth began to tear, the corners stretching all the way back to his ears in a grotesque, impossible smile. Asterisk battle completed. Talent copy successful. Asterisk. Copied talent. Collapse factor, green. Digestion and absorption efficiency greatly increased. Asterisk merging with existing talent. Current progress, 30%. Asterisk. Special adaptation, evil god factor detected. Mental fortitude, gray. Upgraded to mental fortitude, white. Effect, small resistance against external corruption of the mind. An evil god believer. He's a cultist, someone screamed. The realization hit the crowd like a physical blow. Hundreds of people panicked at once. The venue turned into a chaotic nightmare. Run, get out of the way. Move, you trash. Don't block the exit. Screams, sobs, and hysterical curses replaced the cheers. The people who were just enjoying the blood sport a moment ago were now like ants in boiling water, desperate for an escape. Inside the cage, the mutated Mad Slaughter lunged at me. Lin Yuan, catch! Zhao Tianyi shouted from the balcony. My blood-silver blade whistled through the air, passing through the gaps in the cage bars. I caught it firmly. Boom! Thunder roared as a flash of silver light sliced through the air. Mad Slaughter's head flew off, bouncing on the floor with a series of wet thuds. Even then, the mouth on the severed head continued to twitch. I didn't give it a second chance. I swung again and again, carving the head into pieces until only black, foul-smelling blood remained. I didn't hesitate. I slashed the chains on the cage door and kicked it open. I scanned the room and spotted Zhao Tianyi near the edge of the crowd, shielding Wang Tianqing and Luo Ming. He looked frantic. Lin Yuan. Something is wrong, he yelled over the noise. This space, there's no way out. We can't find the exit. I looked around. He was right. People were running in every direction, but no one was actually leaving. They were trapped in a loop. What a disaster. My first time at an underground fight, and I run into a cultist ritual. I came here looking for a blue-grade talent, not a death trap. I cursed under my breath as I shoved through the crowd to reach my friends. I pulled Luo Ming behind me. The evil god cultists wouldn't make this much noise unless they were sure they could keep the information from getting out, I said, checking my comms device. As I expected, there was no signal. I couldn't even call the authorities. Hey kid, a bald brute blocked my path, his eyes locked onto my weapon. I'll give you 100,000 credits. Sell me that blade. Get lost, I growled. In a place like this, a good blade was worth more than any amount of money. Don't be difficult, Brad. The man sneered, reaching for his waist. You think I won't kill you for it? A flash of killing intent crossed my eyes. I drew the blood-silver blade in a blur. Shank. The man's head slid off his shoulders, and his body slumped to the floor. The people around us who were eyeing my weapon immediately looked away. I needed to keep them intimidated. If hundreds of panicked people swarmed us for the blade, we'd be buried. We have to hold out until someone outside notices the anomaly, Zhao Tianyi said grimly. He didn't have his sword with him, but as a level 8 body tempering expert, his bare hands were still lethal. I nodded, but before I could speak, the situation changed again. In the center of the room, thin red lines began to spread from Mad Slaughter's remains. At first, they crawled slowly, but within seconds, they shot out like living veins. What is this? Something's crawling into me. Stay away. Get back. The red lines moved like predators, seeking out the fleeing crowd and burrowing into their skin. Those infected lost their minds instantly. Their mouths tore open toward their ears, blood dripping from the jagged wounds. Avoid the lines, I shouted to the others. If they touch you, you'll turn into one of them. Zhao Tianyi and I each grabbed one of the younger students, tucking them under our arms as we dodged the encroaching red web. But the room was small, and the number of cultists was growing by the second. We were running out of places to hide. Teacher, look out behind you. Luo Ming screamed from under my arm. Luo Ming's shout pulled me back to reality. I twisted my body just in time. A red line hissed past my ear and buried itself into a short-haired girl standing right behind me. Her jaw split open instantly, her teeth sharpening into jagged needles. She lunged at me with a guttural growl. I didn't hesitate. My blood-silver blade flashed, splitting her head down the middle. The kill was clean. A notification flashed in my mind. Talent copied. Gluttony factor. It was only gray quality, but it merged into my existing green talent, pushing the progress to 33%. My eyes widened. I could actually farm these things. Zhao Tianyi, protect Luo Ming. I barked, setting the kid down. I'll handle these monsters. Zhao Tianyi looked grim, but he didn't argue. He knew that if we just stood there waiting, the number of cultists would eventually drown us. He took a defensive stance. I turned and dove headfirst into the sea of madness. It was a slaughter. These cultists were mindless and weak, just difficult to put down for good. I took ahead with every step. My blade was a blur of silver and red. The progress bar in my head was sprinting. 30%, 60%. Even the lowest quality talents gave me a boost. I hit 100%. The talent evolved. Gluttony factor, yellow. My digestion was now top tier. My drug resistance vanished. Even better, my mind rigidity talent jumped from white to green. I felt my focus sharpen, my fear turning into a cold, hard edge. I stopped being afraid. I started being hungry. I had never seen a chance like this, talents ripe for the taking everywhere I looked. If I didn't milk this for everything it was worth, I'd be an idiot. Come on, I roared, my voice echoing through the hall. All of you, come get me. I wanted them all to focus on me. I was a demon in that hall. My shirt was soaked to deep, dark crimson. Blood dripped from my hair and chin. Zhao Tianyi shouted for me to stay sane, to watch out for the red lines. Wang Tianxing stared at me with pure terror in his eyes. To them, I wasn't a hero saving them. I was a butcher who enjoyed the work. A true martial madman. I killed 50, then 80, then 100. The venue held 600 people, and most had already turned. I was fast, but the infection was faster. My arm grew heavy. My movement slowed. My lungs burned like I was breathing glass. But then, the notification flashed again. 100%. Gluttony factor, blue. The new stats were insane. Perfect absorption. And a new ability, devour gluttony faith. My mind rigidity hit yellow quality. I looked at the red lines slithering across the floor like snakes. These lines were the source. If they were faith, then they were food. I stopped dodging. I found a gap and let a red line strike my chest. For a second, my mind froze. It felt like a giant, cold hand was squeezing my brain. Then, the blue talent kicked in. The line vanished into my skin. A surge of warmth flooded my stomach and flowed into my limbs. My stamina returned. My cultivation moved. I wasn't just fighting anymore. I was feasting. I slaughtered cultists and swallowed every red line that came near me. My energy peaked. Within 30 seconds, I felt the internal barrier shatter. Level 6 body tempering. I had broken through in the middle of a bloodbath. Zhao Tianyi was speechless. He saw me level up while surrounded by death. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. But then, the atmosphere shifted. The red lines began to disappear from the floor. The headless corpses started to slide, pulled by an invisible force toward the center of the room, toward the iron cage. I backed up, joining Zhao Tianyi and the students. The cultists stopped attacking us. They ran toward the cage instead, throwing themselves into the pile. As they got within 2 meters, their bodies exploded like fleshy fireworks. The smell of iron and rot was suffocating. Wang Tianxing and Luo Ming turned pale, clutching their stomachs. Even Zhao Tianyi looked sick. Body after body burst, stacking into a mountain of gore. Zhao Tianyi's face went white. "They're summoning an evil god's kin," he whispered. The name sent a chill down my spine. I gripped my blade until my knuckles turned white. The real fight was just beginning. I knew exactly what an evil god's kin was. They were monsters born from pure, unadulterated fanaticism. Their mere presence was a poison. They didn't just kill, they twisted the minds of everyone around them, turning sane people into mindless cultists in seconds. Only martial artists had any hope of resisting that mental corruption, and even then, it was a ticking clock. The stronger you were, the longer you lasted. But we were just body-tempering students. Even the weakest kin was beyond our level. I looked at Zhao Tianyi and the others. If that thing fully manifested, they'd be gone in seconds. I had my yellow-grade hardened mind talent, so I might hold out for a bit, but they were defenseless. I felt a knot of helplessness tighten in my chest. In the center of the room, the mountain of gore began to pulse. Thin lines of blood shot out from the pile, weaving together in the air like crimson thread. A shape began to form. It was a nightmare of flesh, 3 legs, 4 arms, and massive wings sprouting from its back. A heavy, suffocating aura of dread filled the room. "It's an apostle of greed," Zhao Tianyi whispered. His face was ash-white. He recognized it. This was a nightmare scenario. Even a high-level master would struggle against this thing, let alone us. "It's over," Luo Ming muttered, his voice trembling. He gripped his hands so hard his nails drew blood. "I haven't even brought my mother back to the Crescent District yet. I can't die here." The apostle let out a bone-chilling roar, its body nearly solid. But then, something strange happened. The blood threads suddenly thinned out. The creature struggled, clawing at the air as if trying to pull itself into our reality, but the energy was fading. It didn't have enough fuel. With one last frustrated howl, the apostle's body couldn't hold its form. It shattered. Bang! A rain of blood sprayed across the room, soaking everything. The oppressive pressure vanished instantly. Zhao Tianyi and Luo Ming stood there, frozen. They looked like they'd been given a death sentence only for the executioner to trip and break his neck. What just happened?" Zhao Tianyi stammered. "Is it over?" He couldn't wrap his head around it. The cultists had planned this for years, sacrificed dozens of people, and then it just fizzled out? I had a pretty good idea why. I'd been eating those bloodlines during the fight. I had absorbed enough energy for myself to level up, which meant I'd stolen the fuel the ritual needed. The summon was short by just a few threads, and that was enough to make the whole thing collapse. "Don't stand around," I urged them. "We need to move. Now." As the creature exploded, the barrier locking the exits vanished. We ran for the door, but before we could reach it, a blur of motion streaked into the hall. It was old Qin. The usually calm, composed man looked frantic. "Young master, are you hurt?" He grabbed Luo Ming, checking him for injuries with panicked eyes. "I'm fine, Qin," Luo Ming said, his voice shaky. "I'm never coming to an underground fight again, not even if someone paid me." He looked over at me. "If it wasn't for Lin Yuan, we'd be dead." We made our way out of the building, but the authorities were already there. A group from the Law Enforcement Bureau blocked our path. They wanted us to stay for questioning, but old Qin didn't have time for that. He pulled a badge from his pocket, flashed it quickly, and tucked it back. The officers' faces changed instantly when they saw the crescent insignia. That was above their pay grade. The lead officer cleared his throat, looking nervous. "Just a few minutes, please. We just need to know what happened inside." Old Qin gave them a brief summary of what we'd told him. When he mentioned the evil god's kin, the officers looked like they were about to faint. This was the middle of Jiang City. If that thing had manifested, hundreds of thousands of people would have had their minds wiped or twisted in an instant. This wasn't a police matter anymore. This was a job for the Faith Management Bureau. After a quick mental scan to make sure we weren't corrupted, they let us go. I parted ways with Luo Ming and the others, heading back into the night. Somewhere in the shadows of the city, dark projections flickered to life. A group of hidden figures stared at a man named Yishao. "Your plan failed," one of the shadows hissed. Yishao looked stunned. "It's impossible. The quality and quantity of the sacrifices were perfect. I spent 10 years calculating every detail. There's no way the summoning should have failed." He couldn't understand it. By now, the apostle of greed should have been turning the city into a playground for their god. "It doesn't matter now," the shadow replied coldly. "You're exposed. We've arranged a way out. Leave Jiang City immediately." Yishao nodded slowly, his face tight with frustration. "Understood." Back at my place, I pulled up my status panel. I couldn't help but smirk. Name: Lin Yuan. Realm: Level 6 Body Tempering. Talents: Saber Master, purple. First Class Bone, purple. Keen Perception, blue. Greed Factor, blue. Strong Memory, blue. Hardened Mind, yellow. Talent Integration, yellow. My luck was holding up. I had reached level 6, and my list of talents was growing. I was no longer the weak student everyone looked down on. The world was getting dangerous, but for the first time, I felt like I was ready for it. I looked at my status panel and couldn't help but smirk. Reaching level 6 body tempering was a massive win. Normally, even for someone like me, that breakthrough would have taken weeks of grinding and a small fortune in resources. This brush with the cultists had been a nightmare, but it saved me a lot of time and money. I realized my blue-tier talent, keen perception, must have played a huge role. It wasn't just bad luck that put me in that ritual. It was the kind of dangerous opportunity that leads to real growth. I pulled out a bottle of body tempering decoction and downed it. Usually, a normal student needs 3 full days to absorb a single dose. But the moment the liquid hit my stomach, my internal energy surged. My body turned into a furnace, incinerating the nutrients and flooding my veins with power in mere minutes. I stared at the empty bottle in shock. My new greed factor talent gave me perfect absorption. This wasn't just efficient, it was superhuman. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed 10 more bottles, nearly 4 days' worth of medicine, and chugged them all at once. A violent wave of heat crashed through me. I immediately dropped into my walking stance, moving through the forms as sweat soaked my clothes. By the time I finished, I felt like a new man. The only downside was the medicinal toxins. Consuming that much that fast left a heavy residue in my system that would take time to clear. I wondered if my talents would eventually evolve to swallow the poison too. If I kept this up, I wouldn't just hit level 7 before the martial exam warm-ups. I might actually reach level 8. In a place like Jiang City, level 8 was the absolute ceiling for students. I wouldn't just be passing the exam, I'd be dominating it. The next day at school, my teacher Feng Xiong cornered me. He looked me up and down with a strange, knowing glint in his eyes. He had heard about my second run-in with the cultists. I tried to play it off as bad luck, but he just shook his head. He told me that surviving something that deadly wasn't bad luck. It was a sign of incredible fortune. He could already tell I had reached level 6. There was no way a normal student could jump a level that fast without gaining something secret from that ritual. He didn't try to pry into my secrets, but he gave me a stern warning. He told me that wealth is found in danger, but lives are lost there too. He had seen many geniuses rely on their luck until the day it finally ran out. I nodded, taking his words to heart. Luck was a tool, but I couldn't let it become a crutch. Only my own strength was real. Later that afternoon, I headed over to the Chung mansion for my tutoring session. I was a regular there now, so the guards didn't even stop me. I saw Luo Ming leaning out of a second-floor window. When he spotted me, his face lit up and he came sprinting down the stairs. He seemed to have recovered from the trauma of the sacrifice ritual remarkably fast. He started bragging about how he was going to become the head of the Luo family and make sure I could walk tall anywhere on the planet. I laughed, though I knew how hard his path would be as a discarded son. We were about to start the lesson when old Kai walked over to us. His expression was heavier than usual. He looked at me and told me he had already reported everything that happened with the cultists to Lord Luo. I felt a chill. I had been working here for a while, but I had never met the man behind the family. It seemed my quiet life was about to get a lot more complicated. I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. If the situation with the cultists turned ugly, I could lose this tutoring job. Without the steady pay from the Luo family, I wouldn't be able to afford the medicinal supplements I needed to push my body further. But old Kai's next words brushed those worries away. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, square wooden box. He held it out to me with a rare, faint smile. "The master is aware of everything that happened," old Kai said. "To thank you for saving the young master, he had this brought over from the Crescent Moon specifically for you." As the box drew closer, I felt a strange, primal tug deep in my gut. My body was reacting to whatever was inside, craving it before I even saw it. Old Kai slowly flicked the latch and opened the lid. A scent so thick and rich it felt physical instantly filled the room. It was an herbal aroma that seemed to vibrate in the air. Just breathing it in made my mind snap into sharp focus. I felt a surge of vitality rushing through my veins like I'd just woken up from the best sleep of my life. "This is a minor dragon tiger pill," old Kai explained. "It's a specialty of the Crescent Moon. It's designed to accelerate the cultivation of body-tempering warriors. One pill provides medicinal effects that last for an entire year." I stared at the pill. I had never heard of it, but I knew it was priceless. A whole year of continuous medicinal support? That was leagues beyond the basic body-tempering mixtures I'd been using, which usually wore off in a few hours. And since it came from the crescent moon, the heart of human civilization, it was bound to be high grade. Go on. Take it, teacher. Luo Ming urged, nudging my arm. I have to eat one of those every year. They aren't actually that rare. Now, the Great Dragon Tiger Pill? That's the real treasure. It can reshape your bones and grant you 5 extra innate talents. I only got to eat one of those when I was a kid. I felt my eye twitch. One a year? And he'd already had a bone-reshaping pill? I looked at the discarded son of the Luo family and realized just how wealthy the Crescent Moon elites really were. No wonder his cultivation moved like a rocket. This legendary pill was just a standard resource for him. I didn't hesitate any longer. I reached out and took the gift. In the weeks that followed, Jiang City changed. The cultist incident had clearly spooked the higher-ups. The streets were crawling with Enforcement Bureau agents, and even the local thugs had gone into hiding. Luckily, thanks to my connection with the Luo family, the authorities didn't come knocking on my door to ask difficult questions. The minor dragon tiger pill was even better than advertised. Because my body's ability to digest and absorb nutrients was so terrifyingly high, the pill didn't last me a year. Its energy was so dense that I burned through the entire thing in just under a month. But that month changed everything. My cultivation speed doubled. In 12 days, I broke through to level 7. 16 days after that, just as the pill's effects finally faded, I hit level 8. In just 2 months, I had jumped 6 levels. I was no longer a struggling student at the bottom of the food chain. I had reached the top tier of Jiang City's young geniuses. I stood in the training field, my breath steady. I swung my blade, and the movement was like a clap of thunder. The fallen leaves around me were sliced into perfect halves before they could even hit the ground. I felt my blood surging through my veins, making a crisp, ringing sound against my bones. I frowned slightly, looking at my sword. My lightning flash saber technique was still at the proficient stage. I couldn't seem to push it to perfection. It was frustrating. I had the saber grandmaster talent, yet the final step felt like trying to catch a ghost. It made sense why guys like Wang Qianjun were stuck here too, but I hated being stuck. Still, I couldn't complain. At level 8, I was finally on equal footing with the city's best. Wang Qianjun, Hao Shi, Zhao Tianyi. I had lost to people like them before because of the gap in our levels. But a temporary loss meant nothing. Winning at the end was all that mattered. The upcoming martial exam warm-up match was my chance. Usually, these top-tier geniuses were hard to find, tucked away in private training rooms. But the matches would bring them all to one place. It was a buffet of talent, and I was hungry. I hope they don't disappoint me, I whispered to myself. With only 2 days left until the event, the atmosphere at school was electric. Wang Qianjun and the others had stopped showing up to class, likely doing their own final preparations. I tracked down my teacher, Fang Xiong. Is the location for the warm-up match confirmed yet? I asked. I haven't gotten the official notice, Fang Xiong said, shaking his head. But it's usually at the Jiang City Stadium. It's the only place big enough to hold the crowd. And the format? Is it a tournament or a point system? Hard to say. They change it every year, he said, waving me off like I was an annoying fly. I grinned at him. Teacher, if I take first place, it'll make you look pretty good, right? Don't you think there should be a little reward for that? I rubbed my thumb and forefinger together. Fang Xiong stared at me for a second, then burst out laughing. You think I need you to give me face? My name is plenty respected on its own, kid. Besides, don't get cocky just because you hit level 8. There are plenty of monsters in this city. First place isn't a guarantee. I went from level 2 to level 8 in 2 months, I reminded him, expecting a look of shock. He didn't even blink. He just kept his poker face, though I suspected he was screaming on the inside. 2 months for 6 levels? That's decent for a backwater like Crimson Yellow Planet. Even on the Crescent Moon, that's okay. But if your goal is the Clash of Stars, stop looking at this tiny pond. He leaned in, his expression turning dead serious. The universe is vast. I've seen true geniuses who break through one level every single day until they hit the peak of the body tempering stage. 1 level a day? I wondered if he was messing with me. That sounded impossible. But if people like that actually existed, I felt a thrill of excitement. If I ever met a monster like that, I wouldn't just be impressed. I'd be copying their talent the second we touched. I practically started drooling just thinking about it. If the universe really had millions of those geniuses, I was going to be rich. Feng Xiong watched me with a strange expression. He looked surprised, maybe even a little impressed. Usually, when people heard about monsters who broke through a level every single day, they felt crushed. Their martial will would crumble under the weight of such impossible talent. But I wasn't discouraged at all. I was radiating pure, unadulterated excitement. He cleared his throat, deciding to skip the comfort speech he'd clearly prepared. Lin Yuan, he said, his voice dropping an octave. If you actually manage to take first place in this warm-up race, I might just have a little something for you. My eyes snapped to his. I hadn't expected him to actually bite. What kind of reward? Feng Xiong just shook his head, a mysterious smirk playing on his lips. Win first place. Then we'll talk. The days blurred together after that. Before I knew it, the morning of the martial exam warm-up had arrived. The day before, every registered contestant received a ping on their phones. The location was the same as previous years, the Jiang City Gymnasium. They didn't mention the format, but that didn't matter to me. I woke up early, ran through a few sets of my thunderclap blade technique to get the blood pumping, and headed out. Lin Yuan. A cold, familiar voice called out from behind me. I turned to see Wang Qianjun catching up, his black shadow spear gripped firmly in his hand. He fell into step beside me, his expression as stoic as ever. So, you're actually going through with this, he said. You won't place high, but I suppose seeing the world outside your bubble is a good thing. I knew what he was thinking. Wang Qianjun had been buried in his own training lately, so he hadn't seen my recent progress. In his mind, I was still at level 5, maybe level 6 if I'd gotten lucky. In a room full of the city's best, that was bottom-tier strength. To him, I was just a small fry trying to play with the big dogs. You know me, I said with a wide grin. I like fighting strong people. I didn't bother explaining that I was already level 8. There was no point. He'd find out soon enough once the blood started pumping on the field. When we arrived at the gymnasium, the atmosphere was electric. Dozens of students were already there, clustered into small groups based on their schools. I let my perception drift over the crowd. With my talent for sensing energy, their cultivation levels laid themselves bare to me. Level 7. Level 7. Another 7. I whistled internally. This wasn't a school playground. There wasn't a single person here below level 7, and I could already spot several level 8s. I even saw a few familiar faces, like Zhao Tianyi from the 7th high school. Wang Qianjuan's voice turned serious. There are a lot of experts this year. Be careful. There are referees, but accidents happen. The real exam is in a month. Don't get yourself crippled today. He started pointing out the heavy hitters. Hao Shi from 1st high, Ling Langtian from 3rd high, Dai Xiaoxiao from 4th high, Wan Wuxia from 6th high, and your friend Zhao Tianyi. All of them are level 8. They're just as strong as I am. If you run into them, just forfeit. It's not worth the risk. I nodded, slightly surprised. Wang Qianjun was actually looking out for me in his own arrogant way. He respected my guts, even if he thought I was weak. Thanks for the heads up, I said. Everything he told me matched exactly what I was sensing. Lin Yuan, you actually showed up. Zhao Tianyi spotted us and jogged over, a grin on his face. Wang Qianjun glanced between us, clearly surprised that a genius like Zhao Tianyi knew a nobody like me. With all these talents gathered in one place, I wouldn't miss it for the world, I joked. I gestured to the guy beside me. This is Wang Qianjun from my school. You've probably heard of him. Zhao Tianyi nodded respectfully. The genius of 2nd high. It's an honor. Wang Qianjuan's icy exterior thawed a bit. Zhao Tianyi, I've heard of you too. To reach level 8 as a biohuman. I don't think I could have done that in your shoes. You're impressive. Wang Qianjun didn't care about the stigma against biohumans. He only looked down on the weak. After a few minutes of small talk, I looked at Zhao Tianyi. Aren't you going to stick with your classmates? He shrugged, looking a bit uncomfortable. We aren't close. They act nice, but I can feel them looking down on me. I'd rather hang out here. Wang Qianjun snorted. Who cares what a bunch of weaklings think? To him, anyone below level 8 was basically invisible. I just shrugged and pulled a large bottle of specialized nutrient fluid from my bag. I downed the whole thing in seconds, feeling the energy surge through my veins. What are you drinking? Zhao Tianyi asked, sniffing the air. Just an energy drink. I lied, tossing the empty bottle perfectly into a distant trash can. As we waited, the massive doors of the gymnasium slowly creaked open. A man in a sharp black suit stepped out, his presence commanding instant silence. "Everyone, follow me to the arena," he commanded. We followed him into the heart of the complex, emerging onto a massive indoor field. It was huge, at least 100 meters long. But my eyes weren't on the grass. I was looking at the spectator stands. Dozens of men and women were sitting there, watching us like hawks. "The 5 universities," I whispered. This warm-up race was essentially a scouting combine. If you performed well here, the top schools would offer you a contract before the official exam even started. Zhao Tianyi leaned in close. "See those 3 in the front? 2 men and 1 woman. Those are the scouts from the 3 prestige academies." The air in the group shifted instantly. Every student's eyes turned predatory. The 3 prestige academies weren't just schools, they were tickets to the Crescent Moon. They were the only way to leave this backwater planet and see the true universe. On Crimson Yellow Planet, the environment was too stagnant. If you stayed here, your martial path was already dead. I looked at the scouts, then back at the monsters standing around me. My heart was hammering against my ribs. To everyone else, this was a competition for a future. To me, it was an all-you-can-eat buffet of legendary talents. And I was starving. The scouts on the balcony were already losing interest. To them, most of the students here were just a blur of average faces, talented enough for local standards, but lacking that spark that makes a recruiter lean forward. Mobi let out a long yawn and rubbed his eyes. A light screen flickered in front of him, displaying our detailed files, identities, family backgrounds, and school records. "Stop acting like you're bored," Dai Guang snapped, glancing at Mobi's slouching posture. "You're representing Shangjiang Academy, one of the 3 prestige schools." Dai Guang took immense pride in representing Imperial Capital University, and Mobi's laziness clearly grated on his nerves. On the other side, Zhang Xiaoya was scrolling through the data. She paused, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Actually, there is something interesting here. Look at these 2. Biohumans, Zhao Tianyi and Lin Yuan." At the mention of biohumans, both Mobi and Dai Guang looked at their terminals. Mobi's eyebrows shot up. "No kidding. 2 of them? That is rare. In these scouting combines, you usually only see the top 10% of the elite. Biohumans have incredibly stable genes, which is a polite way of saying they have 0 potential for growth. They rarely show any martial talent, and without a wealthy family to fund their early cultivation, they almost never make it this far. Usually, the entire roster is made up of natural-borns. Seeing 1 biohuman was a fluke. Seeing 2 was a miracle. I take it back," Mobi chuckled. "Jiang City's elite crop is actually pretty funny." Dai Guang, however, just scowled. It just shows how pathetic the martial arts scene in Jiang City has become if they let 2 biohumans take up spots in this race. Imperial Capital doesn't accept biohumans. It's not an official rule, but everyone knows it. He looked annoyed. As scouts, their rewards were tied to how many geniuses they signed. Every unselectable student was a wasted slot for him. "This Zhao Tianyi looks like a solid prospect, though," Mobi teased, sensing Dai Guang's frustration. "Too bad you can't touch him." "As if Shangjiang would take a biohuman," Dai Guang sneered. "I heard your students have to bribe their way in just to get a decent mentor these days." Mobi went quiet. It was a low blow. Shangjiang didn't discriminate against biohumans, but they definitely discriminated against the poor. Everything there required money and resources to grease the wheels. Since biohumans were almost always broke, it amounted to the same thing. Both men turned to Zhang Xiaoya. Of the 3 prestige academies, only Huaying Academy gave biohumans a fair shake. "Zhao Tianyi is decent," she murmured, lost in thought as she compared the stats. Down on the field, we had no idea what the scouts were saying. We were crowded around the weapon racks. We weren't allowed to use our own gear. We had to use the equipment provided by the organizers. Luckily, the selection was massive. "Lin Yuan? I didn't think you'd actually show up for this." I looked up to see Xiao Feng staring at me. He was eyeing me like he wanted to settle a debt. I knew why. Ever since I beat him, he'd probably been losing sleep, replaying every second of that fight in his head, obsessing over how he could have lost to a nobody like me. Long time no see, I said casually, focusing on picking out a weapon. If we cross paths today, I won't lose again, he muttered under his breath before walking away. He thought he was being quiet, but Zhao Tianyi and Wang Qianjun were standing right next to me. They heard every word. You beat Xiao Feng? They asked in unison. Wang Qianjun looked especially stunned. The cold arrogance on his face cracked, replaced by genuine shock. Even he couldn't guarantee a clean win against someone of Xiao Feng's caliber. He suppressed his cultivation level back then. I reminded him. Just like when I beat you. Wang Qianjun's face cleared. Oh right, that makes sense. Zhao Tianyi just clicked his tongue in wonder. Even if he suppressed his level, that's no small feat. We stopped chatting and focused on our gear. I picked out a heavy black battle blade. The quality was top-notch, though the edge felt slightly dull compared to my own blood silver blade. I noticed the other weapons were the same, modified to prevent fatal injuries during the match. Just as we finished arming ourselves, the man in the suit stepped to the center of the observation deck. His voice boomed through the stadium speakers. The format for this warm-up race is a free-for-all. The atmosphere turned icy. A battle royale was the most unpredictable format possible. It wasn't just about strength. It was about alliances, backstabbing, and luck. A rank 8 student could easily be dragged down and eliminated by a group of rank 7s if they weren't careful. Instantly, eyes began darting around. Everyone was calculating who to team up with. The boundaries are the edges of the field, the voice continued. Step out, and you're disqualified. Beside me, Zhao Tianyi and Wang Qianjun were already sharing a look. They started moving toward the other heavy hitters. Xiao Feng, Ling Langtian, Dai Xiaoxiao, Wan Wuxia, the rank 8 monsters were all converging into one group. They were smart. These elites were too proud to let a bunch of rank 7 steal their spots. Their plan was simple. Team up, wipe out the weaklings first, and then fight among themselves for the top rankings. The rank 7 students saw it coming. If the elites are teaming up, so are we, one of them shouted. There are more of us. We can take them. 18 rank 7 students quickly formed a massive block, facing off against the smaller group of elites. The air was thick with tension, everyone waiting for the starting signal. Except for me. I was standing right in the middle, a literal no man's land between the two factions. Hey, get over here, a rank 7 student hissed at me. Do you want to be the first one eliminated? On the other side, Zhao Tianyi and Wang Qianjun looked at me with conflicted expressions. Lin Yuan, Zhao Tianyi called out, his voice low. We're cool, but I can't help you here. This is business. Zhao Tianyi was right to warn me. This pre-exam match was too important for favors. If he let me join their elite circle just because we knew each other, everyone else would start pulling in their friends too. The whole thing would turn into a chaotic mess. I stood there, caught in the dead zone between the two factions. First, I looked toward the alliance of rank 7 students. I shook my head slowly. I told them I was sorry, but I couldn't join them. I wasn't a rank 7 fighter. I decided it was time to stop hiding. I let my breath out and released the restraint on my internal energy. My aura surged outward, cold and heavy. I didn't just look stronger, I felt it. The power of a rank 8 fighter radiated from me, unmistakable and sharp. The crowd gasped. Rank 8, someone whispered. The shock was visible on their faces. Xiao Feng, Zhao Tianyi, and Wang Qianjun, the three who had actually fought me before, looked like they had been struck by lightning. Their hearts must have been racing. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. How could I have jumped to rank 8 in just 2 months? It was impossible, yet here I was. Xiao Feng took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. He told me that since I was rank 8, I belonged with them. He invited me to join their side to wipe out the weaklings first. After that, we could settle who was truly the best among the elites. I looked at him and smiled, but I shook my head again. I told him I wasn't joining their side either. The field went silent. Both groups looked at me like I was insane. In a brawl like this, there was no such thing as being neutral. If you didn't pick a side, you became the target for everyone. Standing alone meant I would be the first person eliminated by the combined force of every student on the field. Under the gaze of dozens of confused eyes, I let out a soft laugh. I told them all the truth. I told them that I simply loved to fight. Xiao Feng, Zhao Tianyi, and Wang Qianjun felt their hearts skip a beat when they heard those words. They knew me. They knew I was a martial arts fanatic, a total lunatic when it came to combat. But they never imagined I would choose to be this crazy during the most important exam of my life. I could feel the adrenaline beginning to pump through my veins. The air felt electric. I wasn't just there to pass a test. I was there to feel the rush of the struggle. I took a deep breath, my muscles tensing, and prepared to face the entire world alone.